I think all that. Don't get out of the way! Ah! Uh-oh. I think it might have seen me.
Chances are, if you've been on the internet long enough, you've seen this face. A true icon in horror. But not many people know the story behind him. The game started development 20 years ago and was released 16 years ago. And since then, it's gotten 3 entire movies, 2 of which being live action, and the other is, Due to this series being so heavily foreign, a lot of people who can't speak Japanese have trouble getting into it, but man, is it genuinely worth it. These live-action movies, while being terribly hated online, are some of my favorite video game adaptation movies of all time. Most people absolutely hate the owners of this franchise, whether it be for making the sequels exclusive to mobile, or just making terrible sequels in general. The game has gotten a few sequels, a recently released Steam game, and it keeps a community of fans of the characters today on Twitter. These fans are what intrigued me to look into the series, and I can't explain the thoughts I had digging through this goldmine, but I can try. Most people who know Ao Oni will recognize it by its latest version that was released in 2012, version 6.23. This version was also remade recently and released on Steam. But I'll get to that version soon. The versions in between are incredibly different, so we're going to be covering the first version first. So let's get into it. On the outskirts of town lies a mansion. Very recently, rumors have started to run amok that a monster has taken residence there. The game fades into a city with 2 people walking down the street. Out of nowhere, the person with gray hair gets knocked over and the camera pans over to see 4 more teenagers, and one of them is revealed to be a bully named Takuro. The bullies drag the other students to a mansion on the outskirts of town.
Isn't this...
Nicer than you thought it'd be, huh? Rumors going around that this place is haunted.
What? You mean this is where that monster lives?
You guys do nothing but play video games all day. You need to learn to have some real fun. So get in there! Looks just as clean on the inside too. Almost as if someone really is living in here.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
What's that? You seriously believe this place is haunted?
No. It's just that I don't like dealing with scary stuff.
Yeah, I know. Why else would I drag you along?
Man.
They talk for a bit longer, and then we can hear a glass breaking sound from the other room. Takuro forces Kazuya, who is the person in the gray hair, to go check out the noise. With some more bullying, our main character Hiroshi speaks up and decides to go check out the sound himself.
Stop that.
Huh? What's your problem? Oh, I get it. You're tired. Probably now past your bedtime. Gonna leave this punk to explore this mansion all alone? Some friend you are.
I'm going instead.
Say what?
I said I'm going. Isn't that good enough?
Then you better hurry up and see what that was.
Hiroshi?
Don't worry about me.
We finally get control of the character, and we walk upwards into a kitchen where we can see a broken plate. The door behind us opens slowly, and it cuts back to the group. Takuro continues to relentlessly bully Kazuya until deciding that he's had enough for the day. He heads down to leave the mansion, but...
The hell?
What's going on?
No way. This door, it won't open.
Huh?
That's strange.
What is that?
We cut back to Hiroshi and find out that what broke the plate was actually just a cat. Hiroshi heads back to the group to let them know, but everyone is missing. Hiroshi tries the front door and it doesn't open. He thinks Takuro and his gang trapped him in the mansion and took Kazuya, but suspicion arises as he realizes that the door won't budge at all. Maybe it wasn't Takuro after all. Well, waiting won't help, so Hiroshi decides to explore. Eventually, Hiroshi walks down a hallway and sees the silhouette of Ao Oni past a door. Now aware of the threat, he keeps exploring to see if he can find anyone and is able to find Takeshi in a closet. Takeshi is too scared to talk, however, and is of no use at all. Endlessly walking around, you can eventually find a room upstairs where you can interact with a random bed and push it, revealing a random hole in the floor. There's 2 doorways in this hallway, and one of them has a door that doesn't open unless you spam interact with it, in which case Ao Oni spawns in front of you and kills you. Now is a good time to mention that since this is an RPG Maker horror game, if you don't save and you die, you restart from the very beginning of the game. This is one of the old and current version of the game's major downsides. You're forced to make constant saves and take yourself out of the immersion as there is no autosaving whatsoever. Cautious people like myself will save once every few minutes at the most, after every chase, etc. It gets tedious. If you die there, you can know that since Ao Oni is there, you can now go to the room you saw him in earlier. Draining the purple liquid out of the bathtub, you find Ryota's dead corpse, his skin purple from bathing in the liquid. Searching his body, we can find the library key. Heading into the library, we can see Ao Oni in the corner, showing us that he's in the library with us. With no other choice, we run in and grab the bedroom key from the table, Ao Oni walking down from the top to chase us. The way Oni kills the player is whenever he enters a battle with the player, it immediately triggers a game over. In RPG Maker, a battle is triggered whenever an enemy is on the tile right next to the player. So, in other words, if the Oni is right next to the player, it's an immediate game over. There are 2 methods to escape him, however. One is just running as fast as you can and losing him, and the other method is hiding in a closet.
No, oh my gosh, you are on my tail. Holy jeez. Go, 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 hide. Okay, there he is. He doesn't think to check the cupboard.
This chase is a scripted event, however, and can only be stopped by going into the room you got the key for, and meeting Megumi, or Mika as she's called in future versions.
Lock the door now!
Just what is that monster?
I don't know.
What happened to everyone?
I don't know either.
For now, we should focus on leaving this room as soon as possible. Let's go.
I'll stay here.
What?
That monster's out there. I'd rather stay here.
Looking around the mansion after leaving her behind, we find the tatami room key.
Tatami.
I probably butchered that. It goes to a door right next to where we find it. This is a Japanese-style room with sliding doors that we can't look in without a flashlight for some reason. Searching the mansion more, there's a closet that we can use the flashlight on and find the study key. The study room is seemingly empty until we interact with a chair, and there's a button under the desk that moves the bookshelf, revealing a secret door. In here is a room that is infamous to people who know a good amount of the game. A cage with a key in it. When we pick up this key, Ao Oni will run into the room and kill us. If you're an idiot like me, you'll try to trap him for 10 minutes until you realize you're supposed to lock yourself in the cage. Closing the door on yourself, the Oni and you stare at each other until you get a special cutscene. After Oni leaves, we follow and he waits for us outside of the room, chasing us as soon as we leave. We can now access an archive room where we can interact with every shelf of DVDs, yet not a single one ever matters. Leaving the room puts us into dialogue with Takuro.
Yo, so you're still alive and kicking.
And Kazuya?
Beats me. We split up after that monster attacked. The hell's going on here? First the front door and the windows are jammed, then our cell phone stopped working. And now Ryota's dead in the bathroom.
There's also that girl in the bedroom on the 2nd floor.
Huh?
She was with you guys.
You mean Megumi?
I tried taking her along, but she's too scared. She's taking refuge upstairs and refuses to leave. You might have better luck than me.
Hiroshi then gives Takuro the key to the bedroom, and we follow him down only to see that Ao Oni has already killed him seconds after our encounter. We get the key off of his body and run into the bedroom to escape Oni temporarily. We eventually run into him again, and we have to loop him around and go into a room he came from. This room is the basement. We hide in a closet from him, and once he leaves, we grab a shovel from the room and a photograph of 2 young boys with a man and a woman. Beneath the photo is an underground tunnel key that we use right outside of the room. These tunnels lead outside, but there's a cage door we need to find a key to first. Also in this tunnel is a random wall we can dig out and find a room that looks like a normal room in the mansion. Across from this room, we can use the shovel and break a wall, leading to a desk with the key to the cage door. Opening the door and walking through, we finally made it to an exit. Our character has the genius idea to go back and save Mika alongside us, so we head up to the bedroom to get her.
I found the way out. Come on, let's get out of here together.
Huh?
But nothing! Come on, follow me.
We collect Mika and leave the room. It cuts to Kazuya waking up in the bathroom, and he's seemingly either forgotten about the Oni, or thought that it was just a dream. He stands up and leaves through the front door, which is open now, and leaves the mansion. We cut back to Hiroshi, and for some reason he still can't leave through the front door, so we head to the ladder in the basement and... We cut back to Kazuya outside, and are able to find the ladder that Oni broke, and replace it with another one in a shed right next to it. Kazuya heads down into the tunnels, and we cut back to Hiroshi again. Hiroshi runs Oni around in a circle, and goes to the ladder, climbing up and finding Kazuya, where we drop the ladder so Oni can't follow us. My head was spinning by the time I ran back to town. I had completely lost sight of that monster. I could never speak to anyone about anything that happened today. No one would have believed me anyways. I couldn't help but wonder, what was the truth behind that mansion? It was all a complete mystery. Come to think of it, that photograph is still lying inside my pocket. And with that, we've reached the end of the first version of Ao Oni. This version sets up a great foundation for what's to come, and is actually pretty scary for a first playthrough. We'll go more into depth about what makes the gameplay and design of the game so good soon, and explain what makes the game so scary to me. Now, let's get into the finalized main story and development of Ao Oni, version 6.23 of the game that was released in November 2011. We heard a rumor about a mansion on the outskirts of town. They say that there is a monster that lives there. The characters have relatively similar conversations to the beginning of version 1.1, but their personalities differ slightly, and this time Kazuya isn't in the picture. There's only 4 of them now, and they've decided to head into the mansion together to investigate, rather than as a sick punishment by Takuro. Instead, this time Hiroshi and Takuro both gaslight Takeshi, telling him that there's no such thing as monsters. Hiroshi is framed as the smartass of the group, so people are inclined to believe him, of course. And surely the rumors of the monsters living here couldn't be true, right? A glass breaking sound is heard from the other room, and Hiroshi immediately goes to check it out. Finding out it was a plate that broke, he's now on edge and picks up a piece of the glass shards, but then goes back to his friends to tell them and everyone is missing. While searching for his friends, Hiroshi eventually comes across Takeshi hiding in a closet. Takeshi is too scared to say anything, and Hiroshi leaves him in the closet, picking up a library key and going into the library, where we see Ao Oni for the first time in the revamped library. Quickly picking up the key, Hiroshi runs as the blue demon chases after him, shaking off the monster and hiding upstairs. Now aware of the demon's presence, he knows he has to find his friends and escape with them. In the bedroom, he sees a hole in the floor underneath a bed, so he pushes it out of the way and drops down into a white room with a piano in the middle of it. The piano has blood splattered on the keys, which will be important soon, but for now we just need to find our friends. Looking for our friends, we come across a bottle of soap that might help later, and Takeshi's handkerchief. Heading upstairs, we're followed by Takuro, and they talk about what happened since they were separated.
Hiroshi, you're okay!
Yeah, I guess.
Hiroshi, did you see it too? That monster?
Yeah. It's so unbelievable to think that a creature like that exists.
All the exits are blocked. We're trapped in here.
It would seem so.
Let's split up and look around. I'll check the first floor.
Okay, good luck.
And with that, they split up again. But now with that soap and handkerchief, we can clean off the piano keys and find ourselves a hidden code in blood. Now that we have... Now, I'm gonna be completely honest and say that I have no idea how this puzzle works. I've tried to understand it, I've even read the wiki's description of it, but I am genuinely at a loss. In this safe, Hiroshi finds a key to a kid's bedroom. When going to this bedroom, Mika is found hiding in the corner behind a bed. They share some words, and the player is given a choice to ask Mika to come with them, or stay where they are. The reason I put emphasis on the word choice is because both options have the exact same result of Mika staying in the room.
Come with me! I picked wait here and she died! Are you fucking my ass?
Why the player is given this choice, I have no idea, but it's interesting, I guess. Also in this room, Hiroshi is able to find lighter fluid. This item goes to a lighter that Hiroshi is able to find in a room downstairs, after escaping the Ao Oni hiding in a closet. After you put the lighter fluid into the lighter, you can cut some wallpaper that looks off with a plate shard you picked up earlier, and there's a door behind it. but it's missing a door handle. Picking up a screwdriver from a bathroom downstairs and backtracking upstairs to where we spoke with Takuro, there is a door that leads to nothing, and we can use the screwdriver to take the doorknob off. Finally entering the room behind the wallpaper, you can't see anything except for your player character. You have to use your lighter to make your way around, and you can barely see anything around you. This feature is heavily underutilized. You only use this limited lighting for 5 seconds after entering a room to light a candle and light up the entire room. It's such a great opportunity for horror, and it's just wasted like this. Let me show you some of my visions. Imagine after all of the rooms you've gone through, you get to a dark room with your lighter. With such limited vision, you can't see anything in the room except for what's right next to you. All of a sudden, in the darkness, you hear footsteps, and then the Ao Oni chase music starts, and you have to backtrack out of the room as fast as possible while being able to see barely anything around you. Or, here's another one for you. Imagine if they kept using the flashlight from the first version of the game, and you'd only be able to see a few tiles in front of you. Instead of lighting candles, you'd use a battery of the flashlight to turn on a battery-powered lamp, and you have to find more batteries to charge your flashlight between sections. This would increase the horror for these sections by such a great magnitude, more than just lighting a candle and there being Ao Oni in the corner of the room. Now, I'm not saying it isn't scary when that happens, I'm just saying that the horror for this could be implemented so much better, and it's so disappointing how it's implemented. Anyway, tangent aside, you turn on your lighter and light a candle in the middle of the room, giving light to the entire room. The room seems empty, but you can interact with the bookshelf in the corner and move it out of the way. This is the cage with the key in it. Now, Ao Oni doesn't wait outside of the cage room for you to leave, however. And it's an easy way to shake him off if he's chasing you. The key you pick up is the basement key, so you go to the basement door and... It's too late. Ao Oni got to Mika before we could do anything about it, and now he's after us. So we run into the basement with our key, into a big open room, and just barely escape him as we enter a dark dead-end room. Now we've entered the basement section, and you'll realize soon that this game kind of has chapter-like areas where all the puzzles you solve are related to the specific area you're in, instead of making you backtrack all the way to the start to get items. This is actually a really good system, as backtracking, especially in games like this, can get extremely annoying. This way, everything is all in one place, and you can backtrack if you really want to, like if you're escaping an Oni and whatnot. We go back to the start of the basement and see a shiny object on the top of a bookshelf, but there's no chair or anything we can push to get up to it. We look around more and enter a room with a chair, so we push it to pick up a flathead screwdriver on another bookshelf in the room, and then we push it out of the room to get the basement jail cell key. Now heading up to the top of the basement room, we see Mika standing and staring at us, before her skin turns purple and she turns into an Oni. This is a very interesting revelation, and it can be somewhat hard to understand, so we'll get back into that more when it's important. But for now, we run away from Mika Oni and escape narrowly again. That key we got goes to that dark room we were in earlier, so we turn on our lighter, enter the jail cell, and light up the room. There's strange drawings on the wall, one of weird alien language letters we can't make out, and an Oni behind bars. For this, we have to go behind the jail cell bars and look at the alien language from across the room, revealing a code to us, 5376. This code goes to a random safe that is behind 2 bookshelves in the large room, and behind a flathead screwdriver panel. I swear, sometimes these puzzles are genuinely interesting, and other times they just make a random object you can move. This is another gripe I have with the gameplay. They really just expect you to press your face up against walls and interact with everything possible to complete the game. This gets especially tedious when you're expected to use an item on something random, because you have to navigate through the menu and then the inventory to do so. And if you don't want to do that, your only other option is to look up a walkthrough. There are genuinely good puzzles in this game. Not good in a smart way like Portal, but good in an easy to understand and apply way. Puzzles that are easy to solve, but make you feel smart for solving them. In the safe, we find the annex key, which will lead us to our next section, and a pretty big one. So, we go into the room to our right, but the door to the annex is locked. We try again, and Mika Oni jumps out from the closet next to us and begins another chase. After the chase, we can finally go into the annex, an old section of the mansion that hasn't been kept up like the rest of it. This section is dark. We're able to hear rain outside. There's broken sections of the floor, and it feels like everything is going to give in at any moment. It has an amazing and a terrifying feel to it, that amplifies all of the important sections. We don't exactly know what to do here. It's like a clean state. We have nothing that goes anywhere, so we're left with the opportunity to explore. We can't enter the room next to the entrance because it's dark and our lighter is out of fluid. But we can enter a room with 3 wooden dolls, a noose hanging from the ceiling, and some sort of puzzle that has to do with the wooden dolls. One of these dolls we can pick up, and it has a red ball in one of its eye sockets. Going upstairs, there's a room with a lamp in the corner that we can take a light bulb from. Further upstairs in the attic, there's a box we can move to get some more lighter fluid, and go into the room we couldn't enter before, lighting up the room and revealing Takeshi.
Oh, it's you, Hiroshi. Don't scare me like that.
Takeshi, you're okay.
Yeah, but it's just a matter of time before I get caught by that monster. There's nowhere to run. If only I had suggested we come here, we wouldn't have been in this mess. It's all my fault. Ah!
Takeshi!
Takeshi runs off without us, and we'll find him again later. There's another reason we entered this room that isn't very obvious immediately. We have to push the statue that Takeshi was hiding beside outside of the room and down the stairs to break it, and we get a blue sphere, similar to the red one that's in the doll we picked up. Speaking of that doll we picked up, if we enter a room and turn the lights off, we can see that the doll has the words "Burn Me" on it. With this context, we go upstairs to a room with a fireplace that Ao Oni steps out. We burn the doll here after the chase ends, and get a red sphere out of it. In a room across from the doll's room, there is another room with 2 dolls in it. One of them is missing eyeballs. If we put both the blue and red sphere into it, its head comes off. This head is used for the puzzle in the other room, so the guilt was too much. Takeshi was the one that convinced everyone to come here in the first place, and he couldn't trust Hiroshi to help him escape alive. He figured if he didn't take his own life, then one of the monsters would make it worse. It's a devastating character development. He wasn't a sacrifice for someone else to escape. He didn't help Hiroshi progress through the mansion. He was terrified. Hiroshi inserted the doll's head into the wall and opened his safe with the code the fireplace helped him find in the attic. He went to leave the room, and just as he was about to, Takeshi's body fell from the ceiling, as if his loss couldn't get any worse. At this point, we couldn't possibly know what was going on in Hiroshi's head. First, the loss and impersonation of Mika being witnessed firsthand by Hiroshi, and now Takeshi too. The only person left is Takuro, so Hiroshi pushes on to find him, only to be chased out of the room by Takeshi Oni. This entire sequence is horrifying. It's so dark, and if you really get into it, you can almost feel the pain our silent protagonist feels as he runs away from Oni, who's now claimed another one of his friends. He runs the only direction he hasn't gone yet, and falls to the floor, down into a gray room below the annex. After escaping Takeshi Oni, he unlocks the door to the next area. Going to this area for the first time is another underutilized effect. An entire area that you can only make your way around with the lighter. It could be genuinely very scary, but it's immediately ruined because you just enter a room and flip a lever to turn on the lights to the entire section. In a bookshelf in the room with the lever, you can pull out a picture book. This picture book features 2 strange men communicating or something, I don't really understand it. But in the book, there's a bookmark that we're going to need soon. In the room to the right of the entrance, there's a door with the colors red, green, white, and blue on it. These are also the same colors featured on the bookmark we just got. Next to the door, there's a keypad that has a screw on it. It's kind of difficult to see, but once you notice it, you'll unscrew it and put the bookmark in. There's little holes showing us the colors, and we have to count how many dots of each color there are, and input the code in the order shown on the door. This unlocks the door and Hiroshi heads into it, followed by Takeshi Oni. The chase starts, and then Mika Oni comes down from the top. Turning left quickly, there's a closet in a room we can hide in. Normally when hiding in a closet, you'll listen to a breathing sound and try to listen for a door opening and then a door closing sound. This section tries to trick you, because instead of listening for a door opening and a door closing, you'll have to wait for it twice as you're being chased by 2 Onis. Once you get out of the closet, you can pick up a disc from the corner of a carpet in the room that's out of place. Since the Onis are now gone, Hiroshi is able to go up to the room Mika Oni came from and find Takuro hiding in a closet. He gives our main character a bottle of vinegar and explains that he sprained his ankle, so he's gonna wait in the closet for a bit. With this vinegar, we go back and enter the room across from the room with the lever, picking up a red key from a bathtub we empty. This key is red because it's gotten rust all over it from sitting in the water for whoever knows how long. Using the vinegar, we get all the rust off the key and get an iron gate key. That's strange. We haven't seen an iron gate anywhere. Well, until you realize that you're supposed to push the bathtub out of the way from the top of it. Just another instance of walking around and randomly interacting with things. Anyway, this reveals a staircase with an iron gate, so we go inside. Remember that disc we picked up earlier? It has a color combination on it, and we input that into the paintings on the wall, giving us a metal stick. This metal stick goes into the disc, giving us a key. Where does that key go, you ask? Behind a bookshelf that is facing the opposite side of the screen. On the other side of this door, we can finally find an escape. A rope ladder leading to the surface. We remember how well this went last time.
Oh.
We go to get Takuro and escape with him, and as we head back, we see Ao Oni ripping up the ladder.
Oh, run!
As we're running, Takuro slips on the ground because of his ankle. We're forced to leave him behind and run. We go back to where Takuro fell and pick up a back door key. And when I tell you this is the worst puzzle in the entire game, I mean it. We're supposed to take this back door key back out of the annex basement and to the room where we got the doll's head. Remember that light bulb we picked up from that random room? No, I didn't either. Trust me. I don't think I would have gotten this in a million years of trying. You insert the light bulb into the doll's body and turn off the light, revealing a wall that we can now rip the wallpaper off and somehow enter the backyard through a door that exists somewhere in the shadow realm apparently. If you go outside of the room, this door should just lead to the hallway, but somehow it magically teleports you to the outside when you enter it. When this game was about a monster, I didn't think they meant Monsters Inc. Okay, sorry, I got a little off track there. This outside area doesn't allow us to escape yet. It's just a path leading to the next section of the game. I really like the design of this section. It's obviously another abandoned area like the annex, except this one has an off-putting green floorboards that look damp, and worn down walls with dirt climbing up them. It's such a mysterious expansion to the house, and it only gets weirder as you explore more. It really makes you wonder what the story behind this entire mansion is, and what kind of person owned it before it got taken over by monsters and abandoned. We're left with the opportunity to explore again. So, on the first floor, we can find a chapel room with benches that have buttons on them and a stick behind one of the benches that we can pick up for later. Upstairs, the first room we go into is empty, but if you get close enough, Ao Oni will break through the floor and chase you. You can actually drop down the hole he broke through, and inside of it, there's a weird frame on the wall with 5 dice in it and a hole for a 6th. In another room upstairs, we can notice that the wallpaper is off a bit and rip it to find another room. Just as we're about to go pick up an item off the desk, we can hear a loud door noise from the other room. We run into the closet and hide, but when we get out...
Ultbee, it's all blue. I blued up.
This scene is so interesting to me. It all plays out in a genuinely off-putting and eerie way as a scripted event. It makes me so immersed and intrigued as what any of this could mean. I don't really think it means anything, but I could be wrong, so let me know if it does. We can now pick up that item from the desk, being the final die we need to put into the frame, revealing a code. This code can be inputted into the buttons in this chapel, moving the giant shrine thing in the middle of the room to reveal a staircase. As if this mansion couldn't get any bigger, there's a downstairs area with multiple rooms, one containing hospital beds, another containing prison cells, a long hallway, and a seemingly normal room. This room is where the main puzzle of this section comes into play. We must find 3 different blue puzzle pieces. If we collect this one, however, the door locks behind us. In the room with the hospital beds, we can collect a rope ladder that we let down from the floor above, and it allows us to grab the blue piece and leave the room. Also downstairs, there's a key in a jail cell that we can access using that stick we picked up from the chapel earlier. This key goes to a room upstairs, being some kind of weird library area. There's a panel in the corner we can unscrew that makes something fall in the other room, but we are able to hear a glass breaking sound in the room with us. When we go to see what it was, we see a cat run out, and a new Oni variant. This is Fuwati, or Blockman. He's easily the second most important Oni in the series, just behind Ao Oni himself. He chases you just like a normal Oni, but when you're in a straight line with him, he can charge extremely fast in one direction towards you. You better be lucky not to run into him other than this one scripted event, because it is hard to get away from him. His AI is extremely smart, and he'll dash ahead of where you're going to make you run into him. Your best bet is entering as many rooms as possible as fast as possible. If you're in a room for too long, he'll definitely catch you. When the painting was knocked off of the wall, it revealed a safe behind it. After losing Fuwati, we can push the chair to access the safe, and the code correlates to a puzzle in the room with the hospital beds. If you close all the curtains, they have shapes on them, and the amount of sides of each shape is the code you can put into the safe. In said safe is a basement key we can use downstairs, but not before picking up another blue puzzle piece that we knocked down by removing those screws. We're now onto the final puzzle piece, so we head into the basement to use the key, revealing...
Yeah, I know what you mean. What the fuck is this?
The last blue piece we need is on the other side of that room. With nothing else to do, Hiroshi walks towards the door and Hunchback Oni opens it, chasing after him. Hiroshi then runs to the room and has to keep turning the knob repeatedly, Fuwati coming out of the cage as he just narrowly escapes the room. But he isn't followed out of the room, however, and heading back inside, all of the Onis are gone. That was weird, right? These Onis do actually appear again, multiple times. Let's take a little detour from the story and talk about each of these Onis so we can recognize them in the future installments moving forward. The guy that opened the door was Hunchback Oni. He's a slower Oni and has minor differences from the normal Oni. The big, strong Oni is Squatto. We will definitely get more into this character after we finish talking about V6.23, as he appears in other Ao Oni versions as well. The funny little guy on the bottom is the Caterpillar Oni. It has a pretty big appearance in one of the Oni novels, but I'm not going to cover them, so I'll briefly mention it here. Hiroshi comes across the Caterpillar Oni and takes care of it, and it gets bigger and bigger. Hiroshi names the Caterpillar Oni Blob, and eventually it gets so big that it hides in the closet where Hiroshi's dad stabs it. Hiroshi ran into the mountains to find it, and Blob died in Hiroshi's arms while he was hugging it. Its other appearances in the series are just small ones that don't really expand on it as a character. The deformed Oni literally doesn't even have a wiki page because of how little there is to know about him. Octopus Oni, or whatever the hell this name is, also has little appearances throughout the series, but does appear in most of the games in some way or another. It doesn't chase the player at all, just like the Blob Oni, which is the last one here. The Blob Oni is used again in another version of the game that I'll mention later, and we'll expand on it later. And that's all the Onis in this room. Once they all disappear, Hiroshi goes to the other side of the room and picks up the blue piece, and Takuro walks behind him to talk to him.
Takuro, you're okay.
Yeah, that was a close call. It is dangerous to be alone. Will you please take me with you?
That sounds like a good idea. Let's go.
Now that we have all three of the blue puzzle pieces, the silence is deafening. We go to the hallway to place our pieces, and then...
Fucking hell.
Takuro didn't survive. I mean, we literally saw him trip next to Ao Oni. This outcome is to be expected. After escaping Takuro Oni, Hiroshi can finally put the pieces into the frame, unlocking the door at the end of the hallway. He runs as Takuro Oni chases him, and goes up a staircase, leading him to the outside. Running down as fast as possible, he escapes the mansion, leaving all of his dead friends behind. I ran and ran until I got back to town. The monster was no longer following me. What was that blue thing? I don't know, but Takuro and the others are still missing to this day. That is the end of the final version of Ao Oni. The Steam release doesn't really change much from this version, mostly just making the graphics better, but there is one thing left. A specific cheat code you can put into the name editor right as you start the game. In Ao Oni version 6.23, naming yourself Saoth Park in all capitals gives you a custom story for the game. In this story, all of the characters are replaced with Saoth Park characters, and it plays out completely differently in around 5 minutes of gameplay.
It's a lot prettier on the inside.
Hey guys, let's go home.
Dude, what's wrong, Takeshi? You're such a pussy, dude.
Ah! Screw you guys, I'm going home. What the fuck? It won't open, dude.
What?
Oh my god! They killed Mika!
You bastard!
And with that, the Saoth Park Oni chases us, making us juke him around very closely to shake him off, and heading back into the library to pick up the attic key.
You guys, you're all okay!
I guess.
Hey Hiroshi, what the hell is going on? If anyone would know, it'd be you.
I don't know, dude. This shit really hit the fan this time. And what the fuck is that blue thing?
Screw you guys. We're dead, dude. That thing is going to eat our asses. I like my ass.
Calm the fuck down, Takeshi. We'll find a way out, dude. Right?
Oh my god! They killed Takuro!
You bastard!
Once we shake off the Oni again, we go back into the room where he killed Takuro and pick up the entrance key. And now with this, we can finally leave. But Takeshi is waiting for us.
Takeshi!
Hey, stop it, dude. Don't put a fucking message one on top of me.
Oh my god! They killed Takeshi! Ah!
What? Wait. It's me, dude. Takeshi.
Takeshi?
It seems as though we wanted to talk to the last survivor. It has some questions. What are you people? Why do you exist here? Who sent you here? I didn't do anything to you.
But now I'm all alone. You ignore me. Then I guess it's bye-bye.
Now we are chased by Takeshi Oni, and we have to loop him around one more time so that we can run to the exit.
Imagine it. Your brains are going to be eaten by me.
It's Ao Oni! It's coming right for us! Hey boy, are you okay?
I'm saved! If there's one thing I learned today from all this, is that when you go to an empty mansion on the outskirts of town that everyone says has monsters in it, nothing good can ever come out of it.
This Easter egg is packed full of Saoth Park references, and even if you've only seen a few of the episodes, you'll catch on to a lot of them. It's a really humorous take on the Ao Oni story, complete with meta jokes, characters in the art style, and it feels just like an episode of Saoth Park. This Easter egg is alongside a few more that aren't really worth mentioning, but it was cut from the final Steam release, sadly. Now, we have one last thing to cover for the first Ao Oni game, which are some major changes in versions 3.0 and 5.2. I won't be going over the versions entirely again, as a lot of it is just the same other than some house layout changes, but there are some colossal differences and things worth mentioning, like how when you're about to escape in version 3.0 and Ao Oni is eating the rope ladder, when you escape him, Hiroshi says that he wants to go to the bedroom, and he just decides to take a nap in the mansion while Ao Oni is still out there. Hiroshi wakes up in the middle of the night to Ao Oni entering the room, and they exchange dialogue.
Hiroshi. It's me.
Naoki? What's with...
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Hiroshi. You're such a smart ass.
Hiroshi, did you think I was dead? You think I would have just kicked the bucket?
Jeez, Takeshi, you laugh too much.
Oh yeah, today is my...
Hiroshi wakes up. It was just a dream. A pounding noise can be heard from the other room. Hiroshi looks around to find out where it's coming from, only to find Squatto brutally killing his last friend. This begins a chase sequence with Squatto, and when you escape him, there's a new room you'll be able to access. Actually, an entire new floor. This is the original Oni room. It contains a few new Onis that were scrapped after this version of the game. The first one is the Clock Oni, which apparently resembles a clock with thorns, but I don't really see it. Teeth Oni is strange. It's hard to understand if it's the normal Oni or a different version. This Oni is the one seen eating the rope ladder, and also seen rarely in other versions of the game. Tall Oni is literally just a normal Oni, but stretched out. Satellite Oni is the most interesting of the four, however, appearing as one of the main villains in one of the novels. In the novel, he kills Takeshi by swooping in and striking his head. I can't fact check this because I don't have the novels, but apparently a character named Fluffy kills Satellite Oni. The reason I'm skeptical of this is that with multiple Google searches and searching the wiki, there is no mention of a character named Fluffy anywhere other than this wiki page. Anyway, past this Oni room, there's another room, only having the Blob Oni in it. It moves extremely slowly towards the player, and the player must run past it to grab the front door key and leave. The player is then greeted by Ao Oni, where they have to run him in a loop and leave through the front door. That's all the main changes in version 3.0, so we're on to the final version I'll be covering, version 5.2, that has huge changes compared to the final build of the game. So big that I could genuinely see people enjoying 5.2 more than the final version that was released. Other than house layout changes, nothing interesting really changes until you get to the basement. When you get to the door, you need a code to enter, and Ao Oni stands before you, waiting for you to fail. This code can be gotten through a weird riddle puzzle, and then you get a cipher to a weird passcode I looked up because I didn't understand. And once again, still don't understand even after reading the solution on the wiki. The basement in this version is extremely different, containing some actual really smart puzzles. The main puzzle down here is an addition problem you can find on a table. The equation makes no sense, but when you flip it upside down, it starts to make sense. Pair this with a diary you find and a piece of paper you attach to it, you can add the numbers upside down and you get the safe code to another room. After getting the annex key out of the safe, the power turns off and Ao Oni chases you to the start of the basement. This chase is awesome. It's exactly what I wanted out of the lighter mechanic. Well, maybe not exactly, but pretty close to it. When trying to solve this puzzle, you have plenty of time to run around the basement and learn the layout. So when the lights all just turn off, and you can hear Ao Oni chasing you, it's easy to make your way back to the front of the basement. It's such a shame that a scene like this was cut from the full release, because there were so many good opportunities for something like this. I just wish that it lasted longer, because you can get it done in like 15 seconds. Once you enter the annex, it's pretty much the same, with a few new rooms and different placements for them. There's a puzzle where you have to use a plank you pick up to reveal a code next to a safe, and you use the same plank to cross the gap to the next area as well. However, as you're in this area, you meet a new type of Oni, which is my personal favorite out of all of them. He jumps through windows, and isn't hostile towards you unless you get close to him. However, you are forced to get close to him to get the light bulb later. As you travel through the annex for the remainder of your time, the Roach Oni will break through more windows and keep trying to catch you off guard. There isn't much else here, but the next area is the annex basement, which is also completely different from the final release. The first couple of rooms in the basement contain new puzzles, one of which is a peg puzzle where you play as Oni and you have to find a way to corner Hiroshi, but he moves every time you move. I'm not gonna lie, I just spammed things until it eventually worked for that one. So if you plan on playing it, good luck. After that, you obtain a small key from a rug that looks out of place and use it on a padlock to get the padlock. Then, you use the padlock on a jail cell door to lock yourself inside, or Oni turns into Sonic the Hedgehog to stop you from getting the star piece. The other one is the coloring puzzle, and the solution to it is coloring each piece so that there are no pieces of the same color that are touching each other, which is relatively easy after Hiroshi explains how to solve it when you exit out of it. When completing the puzzle, you get the moon piece. After solving these puzzles, you get differently shaped pieces, as you might have noticed. You need 3 of them to open a door to the exit. There's one piece left, however, and solving it is quite clever. The door we removed the padlock from is where Takeshi ran to hide. When going down, you are greeted by him with dialogue. The dialogue is pretty much the same from the final version right before he kills himself, so it's not really worth reading again. But down here, we're able to find a safe. That's strange, though. Not a single thing here has given us a code. At least until you pick the plank back up and use it on the coloring puzzle. This is actually genius, but I can guarantee you that less than half of the people who have played this version completed this puzzle on their own. Once we get the final piece, we can open the door and find the outside rope tunnel area. Now is the most interesting part of this version of the game, and the main reason I think people could genuinely consider it to be better. There are multiple endings to this version. The first ending is escaping alone and not going back to save your friends. In this ending, your friends are missing for good and you run free. In the next endings, you have to find your friends and escape, however. Mika is still in the same bedroom we found her in before, but we still need to find Takuro before she'll follow us, as she's too scared to leave the room without her boyfriend. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Mika and Takuro are dating. Takuro can be found in the library, and Mika will follow you after you get him. Takeshi is interesting, however, as he can be found randomly throughout the entire mansion in any closet. But we aren't going to find Takeshi yet, because this next ending is escaping with only a couple of your friends. This ending is pretty much the exact same as escaping alone, however. The final ending can be gotten when you collect all of your friends. You go back to the rope ladder, and Ao Oni can be seen ripping it to shreds. This time, however, there's an entire new way to escape. Once escaping Ao Oni and getting the shed key from where he broke the ladder, you can pick up the plank again and put it on a blank tile in front of a window. This is one of the windows that Roach Oni broke through, and it leads outside to a shed. When you go into the shed, Oni breaks through the floor and starts a never-ending chase, and will kill you no matter what, unless you loop him around or break his ankles and run through the shed. Once on the other side, you escape and get a special ending. Running for my life, I somehow made it back to town. The monster wasn't chasing me anymore.
That Takeshi guy. Ditching school again, huh?
It appears so.
Damn, we almost got killed because of him, man! Hiroshi, you think that thing was really there?
Huh?
Like, maybe we just had a very bad dream.
That's what I keep hoping.
Hey, it's actually pretty clean in here.
They say this place is haunted. That's why people from the vicinity keep away from it.
What a creepy place.
Don't tell me you're afraid of ghosts?
Never be so reckless as to enter a mysterious mansion in your town just for fun. If you incur the wrath of the former occupant, you might not get away that easily. Especially if no man is living there anymore. Ao Oni is a masterclass in RPG horror. It's not held back by the fact that it's an RPG game. It actually uses that to its advantage. As someone who's gotten desensitized to most horror games over the years, it's insane to say that a 2D game is actually able to make me jump, and in some situations, actually audibly scream. Of course, it's not actually scary to listen for Ao Oni to leave a room when you're in a closet, but Ao Oni climbing out of fireplaces, walking down from the door you're heading up to, chasing you into the dark when you can't see anything. Stuff like that makes this game genuinely terrifying. A lot of the puzzles, while sometimes not implemented in the most amazing ways possible, are genius and make you feel like you're one too when you solve them without using any guides. It's such a shame that other adaptations of the story can be so obnoxious with how it's played. Like, Ao Oni isn't supposed to spawn every fucking 5 rooms you enter. Him being a rare appearance is what catches you off guard, and you shouldn't have to up the chances of running into him if the people getting into your game aren't speedrunners who have played the game a million times and know all the secret puzzles and code combinations. With that, after 32 pages, and however long we are into the video, we finally covered the first game of Ao Oni. But that's not it, so stick with me here, because I've never covered a movie before, but I'll try my best. I won't just go through everything that happened in the movie, because I seriously suggest you watch it for yourself, but I will talk about the designs and stuff in the movie, the major plot points, and what I like about it. First thing I will say about this is that, man, it is hard to come across. I had to download subtitles from a YouTube upload of the movie, and I couldn't use that upload because it censored some of the gore scenes, and I had to use them on a legitimate website to view movies under a specific way to view a specific server. The subtitles were delayed by a few seconds, but it was the best I could get. It started off with an admittedly bad chase scene. I guess it's alright to get you hooked at the beginning because we don't see the rest of this chase scene until the very end of the movie, but it's more confusing than anything. The music played in it is like a calming piano, which was such a weird and missed opportunity with how iconic a lot of the Ao Oni themes are. This chase is over quickly, and then it cuts to someone street performing, and his singing is so bad that his only viewer randomly decides to run into the road and kill himself. What the fuck? His sister Anna, who is a major character in this movie, is then seen placing flowers at his grave, and meets a boy named Shun. Shun shows Anna a game he's working on, basically just being the game of Ao Oni, and after they talk about it for a bit, Anna starts to leave before seeing Shun being bullied by Takuro. Then, the title card for the movie is shown. After this, Takuro, Shun, Mika, Takeshi, and Hiroshi all go into an abandoned mansion together and they can't open the door anymore. Everyone is on edge and trying to find a way to escape. Hiroshi picks up a glass shard, just like in the game, and Mika is killed. And then Takeshi is grabbed and everyone hears him scream. They go to save him and find his corpse in such a disturbing state that I literally cannot show it on YouTube. And trust me, I know how annoying it is when YouTubers think they can't show something, but videos of this have gotten taken down before, so go look for it at your own risk. After this, Shun realizes that the situation is exactly what was happening in his game that he developed, so they go to solve puzzles, and just as they're about to wipe the blood off the piano keys, Ao Oni impersonates Mika's voice, and he tries breaking down a door to a room that Shun and Anna are in. He taunts them before breaking into the room and chasing them down. After escaping Ao Oni, Shun and Anna come across Mika's body, which I once again cannot show because of the insane levels of detail on the gory death. They sit down next to this corpse for some reason, and Anna decides that now is a good time to tell Shun that she thinks Naoki, who is the boy who killed himself in the beginning, actually didn't kill himself and was murdered. They now have to go find a key underneath a carpet, so they go to the basement to do so, and Takuro is there waiting for them. Takuro knocks Hiroshi out, and Anna says that he killed her brother. He denies ever doing it, but then Shun opens a box Takuro was carrying, and finds his own dead body inside of it, revealing that Shun was already dead from the start, and Takuro was coming to this mansion to hide his body away inside of it. Anna apologizes as he disappears, and Takuro wants to kill her for finding out, but Ao Oni catches him before he's able to. Anna wakes up Hiroshi, and then they run out of the room together, but Ao Oni chases them and catches up to Hiroshi, killing him as Anna runs away. And finally, we've got into the chase scene from the beginning of the movie. This last scene is really hard for me to understand personally, but I have a few theories as to what it could mean. Anna is cornered by Ao Oni, and it fades to white, showing the beginning of the movie where Shun was showing Anna his game. This could mean a few things. Maybe Anna was so immersed in the game Shun was showing her that she envisioned all of this in her head. Or maybe she's envisioning going back to before they all went to the mansion right before she died. The movie ends with her holding out her hand for Shun, as she saw the same signs in him as she did with Naoki, and it shows clear on the laptop screen like they finished the game. It's all very confusing, but there was obviously a lot of love put into this movie. Lots of callbacks to the original game, even with this entire new story with Shun and Anna on top of it. Oni himself looks phenomenal in this movie, his movement weighed down by his giant head, but also at the same time moving with ease, jumping around and sprinting extremely fast. Plus, he got way more screen time than Slenderman did in their respective movies, so they actually did use him as a villain a fair amount. There's some deep message hidden in this movie, and it's definitely worth a watch, even if you haven't seen it and just got the entire plot spoiled by me. I missed a lot of the plot in my coverage of it anyway, so it's still worth watching. The Oni's model in this movie is extremely high quality, and it fits the lighting in this movie perfectly. There's some high quality renders of the model that were released by Cinema Today in Japan that are on screen now, and just imagine what kind of stuff could be made with this. It's the perfect encapsulation of Ao Oni in its most original and terrifying form. Sharp teeth that get covered in blood as the movie goes on. Claws. His massive asymmetrical head. He's so grotesque looking. I could go on and on about how perfect this model is in my opinion, but I think it speaks for itself. This movie was a net profit, making over 16 million US dollars worth of yen in its theatrical release, which was enough for it to get a sequel announced around a year after it was released. Shun was a character in this movie unseen in this video until now, because he's actually the main protagonist of the Ao Oni novels, and he appears in pretty much everything other than the games. This video is mainly about the games though, so we won't be covering him that much. A major downside of this movie, in my opinion, is the camera angles they use. A lot of the scenes look like they're zoomed in or just aren't shot very well. The lighting in all of the scenes fits the movie very well though, especially in the basement. The actors really knocked it out of the park with a lot of the scenes in this movie, and it stands on its own as a great horror film, even without any of the context of the game. Another downside is the soundtrack, as most of it is just the same piano song that does not amplify any of the scenes at all, especially compared to other Ao Oni audio design. We will go more into depth when talking about the second movie, because it's pretty much the same as the first movie, but better. So a lot of what I want to talk about is done better in it as a result. It's a good movie, don't get me wrong, better than a lot of other video game adaptations, but it does more wrong than right, so I can understand the hate that it got. Now, however, we will talk about the bane of my existence, the Ao Oni mobile games that are barely translated into English, forcing me to use my phone as a translator with my camera. Don't worry though, I'll make it look all pretty in post so you don't have to witness the absolute horror that is this. Thankfully, the main story with Hiroshi is fully translated into English, so I won't have to suffer editing it like I will with the other scenarios. Long ago, a certain school in the outskirts of town was suddenly closed. Nowadays, no one knows the reason why. But there was a rumor going around. They said a blue monster appeared in that abandoned school building. We fade in from black and our main group is captured in a prison cell alongside a blue-haired woman, the teacher who presumably used to work at this school before it was abandoned. How is everyone alive after the first game? I have no idea. And the funniest thing is, everyone dies again in this game too. I asked a few people who know more about Ao Oni how the continuity of this story works, and they didn't know. The wiki barely has anything about this game either. Litmus just really likes retelling the same stories with different characters, which is why I'll be glossing over quite a bit of this game's main story. This area is nothing like what should be in a school. It has multiple prison cells, everything looks deteriorated, unkept, dark, and more synonyms for abandoned. How did this group get here?
I don't even know.
Hiroshi talks to the group and hears a plate break in the other room, in which he investigates. Meanwhile, Ao Oni scares everyone else off, so he goes back to nobody being there, exactly like the first game. After solving a few puzzles, we get out of the dungeon, or basement of the school, and up into a normal area of it. The school is very bland, but it's obvious that it hasn't just been abandoned. Something had to have happened here. Lockers are knocked over and beat up, doors are boarded off, windows are shattered, and there's a blue demon chasing after us! He's had somewhat of a graphical improvement, but nothing entirely notable. The death screen has had an update from before, now showing your cause of death alongside some other information. I actually saw this screen a lot of my playthrough because there's no option to use a joystick or anything, so every time I wanted to run away from Ao Oni, I had to use my mouse with the limited screen space and was barely able to control where my character was going. And on top of that, saving in this game is even more tedious than in the original. They could have made saving the game extremely easy by adding a button at the top of the screen, like, I don't know, the screenshot button? What is even the point in that? If you just replaced it with an easy to press save button that overwrites your last save, the game would be so much more immersive and less tedious to play. I probably spent over 20 minutes just navigating through these menus in my playthroughs. Eventually, Hiroshi meets up with the teacher, where she joins your party and you go to find Takeshi. A lot of the puzzles in this game have actually been improved a lot from the first game, but to save time I won't be going over any puzzles unless they're really worth bringing up, as most of them just give the player something to do while going through the schoolhouse, not being very notable whatsoever. Moving on, Hiroshi walks up to grab a key, but a mouse quickly runs across the screen and grabs it, forcing Hiroshi to trap the mouse using tables in the kitchen and grab the key from it. I normally wouldn't bring this up, but this mouse actually matters quite a bit later, weirdly enough. After leaving the kitchen, Ao Oni appears and scares off the teacher, separating us. Eventually, after solving endless puzzles, you get access to a new area where you find Takeshi.
I thought you were someone else.
You seem alright. Let's get out of here fast.
The blue monster is...
Takeshi? Takeshi.
Thank you. Oh yeah, I picked this up earlier for defense. I don't think I can walk yet, so I'll stay here for a while.
I'll look for the others. Wait here patiently, okay?
After this, we keep searching for the others and eventually come across a new Oni variant, or rather just Ao Oni impersonating someone. He has a mustache and the, Look, I'm not a barber, but it's that stereotypical old balding man haircut. You can see it. We'll learn more about this eventually, but for now let's just push on. Eventually, we come across Mika, who tells us that Takuro was with her, and she directs us to go find him before she follows us. Once again, just like in the first game. This section of the school is different because it's blue. There's also a musical classroom here with pictures of Mozart and Beethoven and, someone else. We do some puzzles to try and find Takuro, but end up coming across the teacher first. We're given another non-choice, similar to the one with Mika in the first game, where we can choose to go with the teacher or go find Takuro. And if you choose to stay with the teacher, she says, "I'll be fine by myself. Go look for Takuro." We go back to where we found Mika and... Bruh. Yeah, Mika is dead again. But she has a valve on her body that can be used for another puzzle. I actually do want to talk about this puzzle and location because it's interesting and kinda comes up later. This is an outside area, not at the very top roof, but still on a roof. There's a pool here and rain pouring down on the school building. After going through all of the school sections that looked relatively the same, this is literally a breath of fresh air. Even the inside areas of this part look unique. With the valve you got from Mika, you can transfer the water in the pool to another location. You have to transfer it back and forth to get to two different areas, one being the other side of the pool and another being a different section of the interior of the school. There are a few more puzzles here, but there's nothing very noteworthy. Eventually, Hiroshi will come across Takuro. Hiroshi implies that Mika is dead, and Takuro just doesn't seem to care at all, and then he joins the party so that they can go check on Takeshi. There's actually a puzzle here that has a pretty funny Easter egg. So normally you have to find the code to put in the radio, but right next to the radio there's a board showing the score of a basketball game, being 0714. This score is not the code you put in the radio, but when you do, it spawns a bunch of Onis to kill you with the reason Hiroshi put in a careless answer. This is also when a lot of other Onis show up in the game. They appear another time when you can fail a puzzle. Putting incorrect answers in other than this will result in nothing happening, however. Then there was a puzzle outside with these Ao Oni statues. I think that there were buttons on them or something. I don't remember, and honestly I don't want to because it was miserable. Finally, we can get to Takeshi, and yeah, he's dead again. Who would have guessed? This school isn't going to escape itself, so we go back outside and down some stairs to see the teacher being cornered by Ao Oni. Takuro yells at it and runs away to save her, leaving us alone to try and regroup everyone. The teacher is lying on the ground in the room where we found her before.
Well, had a heart attack. Get the fuck up.
She has a straw doll on her, and when we pick it up, Ao Oni runs in and kills you.
What's wrong with you?
We can collect a padlock in another area and use it here, and we're able to see the iconic jail cell scene again, and then we're finally able to pick up the straw doll. Once we throw the doll in a fire, we can get a mirror and have to solve a puzzle in the next room with it. If we fail this puzzle, something similar to the 0714 Easter egg in the basketball area occurs, and a bunch of Oni spawn in all directions to kill you. However, completing this puzzle grants you access to another area, this one being a different kind of school building. This one is darker, and it looks like it's been abandoned way longer than the other one. In a room here, we can pick up a break room key that makes Ao Oni enter the room below us and stay in there. To get him out, we have to use the intercom, which is broken and needs parts that are scattered around. When we do this, Ao Oni leaves, and in my playthrough, duplicates and stands out of the way for some reason. I'm gonna skip over the rest of this location as it's all a blur, honestly, and now Hiroshi comes up to Takuro again, finally.
Takuro!
You're alright!
Yeah, I think the rooftop is right above us.
I see. There's no exit below, so we can only search over here now. Let's check it out.
The door needs a crowbar to be opened, and just like in the first game when we open our inventory, Takuro is dead again. He chases us out to the roof, and the place we need to go is locked, as always, so we hide away and need to do a few more puzzles before we leave. After leaving through the gate, we go down a staircase. Ao Oni chases us down, and there's a bunch of other Onis that are barricaded off. There are dead ends that trap you, but if you take the right path, you can escape the school. As I was running in a daze, I finally reached town. That blue monster was no longer chasing me. I haven't told anyone what happened that day. To this date, Takuro and the others are still missing. It's an interesting choice to retell pretty much exactly the same story as the first game. Did they feel that they couldn't tell a different story and do the first justice? Was this supposed to be the start of another one? Well, spoiler alert, Ao Oni 3 starts off with all of the characters alive again. Despite these games being sequels, there's no actual continuations of the story being told here. We do get a backstory to things in the side stories that we'll talk about in a minute, but never a single thing past Hiroshi running from the school, or the mansion, or later the island. Litmus is just running in circles here. This main story is flawed in so many ways, and it's a massive step down from the original title. Most of the puzzles are uninspired, annoyingly specific, or straight up copied from the first game. The story is mostly forgettable, and everything just feels so much less impactful this time around. But as I've hinted at enough, some of the side stories are actually pretty good. Have you ever wondered what the other members of the group are doing whenever they aren't on screen? Why did Takuro disappear multiple times and come back as an Oni? Maybe someone else made it out alive? Here are all the other stories for Ao Oni 2. We'll be going from the top to the bottom, and none of these are translated into English at all, so I had to use my phone camera to translate all of the text. Excuse me if any of the things I say in this next part are mistranslated slightly. I promise it probably won't be that bad. The first scenario here is Takeshi, that starts off exactly like Hiroshi's story, as Takeshi was in the cell with him to start off. It gets interesting when Hiroshi goes to pick up the plate though, as Takuro and Mika both decide to explore alone, and Ao Oni comes out from the room in the top right, chasing the teacher out of the room. Hiroshi comes out and sees Takeshi, but he's too scared to talk, so he runs as fast as he can to a brand new area of the school. Debris crashes down behind him, which is why Hiroshi never entered this part of the school during his scenario. The puzzles in this story feel much more fun to do than the ones in Hiroshi's, and the locations feel much more manageable to navigate. I'm not sure if this is a side effect from me getting used to the controls after playing for 3 hours, but either way, I had a much more fun time going through this story than Hiroshi's, and it's one of the weakest of the bunch. Eventually, you get access to a room I'd assume would be the nurse's office with 4 hospital beds. There's purple footsteps leading into one of them, and going up to it makes a giant splash of ow all over the place. There's no monster inside, but there is a key you need to progress. Backtracking to leave the room causes the entire room to be covered in weird patterns of purple gunk, and Ao Oni starts chasing you. After doing enough puzzles, Takeshi is given a hammer he uses to break a hole in the floor and jump down, bringing him to a familiar big open room. He's too scared to keep pushing on, so he hides in the closet, which is where Hiroshi meets him in his story. After talking with Hiroshi, Takeshi keeps hiding and eventually meets with the teacher. Their introduction is shortly interrupted by Ao Oni, who chases the teacher away. Her scream is then heard from the other room. This makes Takeshi believe that the teacher was murdered by the monster. The room he's in then turns purple, just like all of the other infested and worn down rooms. With no more strength to fight, Takeshi hangs himself with the rope in the room. That is the end of Takeshi's story. While not adding much to the main story at all, it's still interesting to see the story from another person's perspective, and it's so cool how it seems Litmus really wrote out the entire story here and planned out what each character would do individually to fit each other's scenarios perfectly. That isn't really shown much here, however, but the puzzle pieces will click as we go through more of the stories. The next one is Mika's story, so let's get to it. This one doesn't start off in the beginning, as it would be kind of annoying to go through that beginning every time we begin a new scenario. Instead, we begin in the room Hiroshi goes through in the beginning. The text gives us the context that Mika got lost while following Takuro. She climbs over a bunch of debris and enters a room where she watches the mouse from before walk by. She follows the mouse past the kitchen, which is where we'll see the main area Mika's scenario takes place in, being a weird expansion past the room with all the tables. The mouse baits her into following it up to the top of the room, where Hunchback Oni breaks out from a wall and chases her. After escaping, she comes across a freezer room in which she finds a nail puller and gets cornered by a frozen Hunchback Oni. I am really stupid, so this puzzle took me a long time to figure out. I kept thinking that I was supposed to block off the way he comes from so he can't get to me, and actually soft-locked myself by doing so. You're just supposed to push a table in the middle of the room and run him around it. That's literally it. If you go back to where the Hunchback Oni broke out of the wall, there's a door where he came from where the nail puller is used, giving you access to a puzzle where you boil water and use it on a door in the freezer room, granting you access to the next area, which is where Takeshi is hiding. They catch up with each other, nothing entirely important is said, and Mika continues forward to try and find Takuro. The area Mika explores is now the area Hiroshi has already explored. The basketball score returns again next to a keypad, and putting in 0714 results in Hunchback Oni entering the room and cornering Mika, giving you the death message that Mika input a careless answer. Outside of this room, there's a random sign you can interact with that gives you Takuro's handbook. The key to open it falls out onto the floor, and that dirty little mouse from before picks it up and runs away with it. We break a wall in the middle of the room with a hammer and do the same puzzle we did with Hiroshi in the kitchen to get the mouse to stop. But when we pick up the key, we pick up the mouse as well. The message for him reads that he used to prank Mika a lot, but now he seems to be a good friend. The mouse helps us out more because we let it go near a crack in the wall where it goes to pick up a bottle for us, and we leave him behind to be free. We pour the liquid from the bottle onto a rag that we use to wipe the photo that was in Takuro's handbook, revealing the code to the door from earlier for some reason. This room is where we find Takuro. Their conversation is shortly lived, however, as it's interrupted by Ao Oni, and Takuro yells out a code as she runs, granting her access to a large staircase as Hunchback Oni chases her. She gets away and meets back up with Takuro, where they go to a room together and split up. Takuro telling Mika to stay behind as he searches, and that he will come back. After a few hours, Mika tries to find him as she's scared and collapses the area to get to him, picking up a valve and returning to where she was. The mouse meets up with her again, and takes the group photo from her, running away as Ao Oni enters the room shortly after, cornering Mika and killing her. This is where Mika's story ends, but there's a cutscene of the mouse taking the photo outside, in which it gets drenched in water, and the faces of Mika and Takeshi are replaced with Oni's face. The next story is Takuro, fittingly enough, and it starts off when he split up from Mika at the end of her story. There's an interesting puzzle where you have to find out which buttons to put a couple rocks on, and it gives you a key card when you do. You can then find diving gear and go to an underwater section of the game. The player, walks perfectly fine underwater for some reason, and it's like normal rooms, but with a water filter over it. There's also a new type of Oni introduced here, being the Fish Oni that requires you to block its sight with a giant boulder to continue. In the middle of walking through this room, Ao Oni walks in behind you. Being underwater, the Oni is slowed, and you have to block all of the lines of sight of the fish while he's chasing you, which isn't actually as hard as it seems. The rest of the puzzles here aren't very interesting, and eventually you meet up with Hiroshi again and get to the part where Takuro baits Ao Oni so the teacher's life can be saved. This is the halfway mark of Takuro's chapter. As he continues onward, the entire path behind him is destroyed, and an ungodly amount of debris falls from the ceiling to block his path. There are a couple noteworthy rooms in this area, one being a large room that Fuwari resides in. He's much less interesting in this game. They dumbed him down and made him easier to run from, as you have to use his power against him and trick him into running into walls so that you can get to the other side of the room and pick up a battery, which is used on a lantern. Do you remember that idea I had earlier about there being sections or rooms that the player could only navigate through while seeing a small area around them? Well, I wrote that in the script before I actually played this game, and this game has those areas in it. Now, admittedly, they aren't exactly the idea I had, and they're pretty boring, but it's still a cool idea, and it can be very eerie, especially since there are multiple times in this room where an Oni will enter the room while you're in it, and it's very unnerving trying to navigate to the closest exit without being able to see anything around you. A lot of the puzzles here are really annoying and stupid, like pushing a rock down a random staircase and across a giant room, and it takes forever to push. But Takuro eventually comes across a long room with a weird little Oni statue on the floor at the end of it.
I don't really want this.
Eventually, after doing enough puzzles, you should have everything you need to pry the boards off of the doorway, and hammer them back on quickly before Ao Oni is able to break into the room you entered. This room has 8 statues of Ao Oni, and a place for the miniature statue in the middle of the room. As Takuro places the little Ao Oni rock figure onto the table, all 8 of the Ao Oni statues spring to life, and Takuro is captured. But that isn't the end of the chapter yet, because for the first time, we get to see what it's like to be possessed. Takuro still has his consciousness, but he can't control his body. He sees as Ao Oni uses his body to communicate to Hiroshi and lure him into a trap. Luckily, we already know Hiroshi escapes quickly, but it's just a glance into my evil world, I guess. The next story is the teacher story, which is easily the best and most unique out of every story in the game. We start off years before the school was abandoned, and we play as the teacher at a young age. She's forced to do all of the work as her classmate keeps making excuses to not do any. Following her classmate to the roof, she has to build a platform to be able to jump across and get to the other side, because it's flooded with water for some reason. On the other side, the teacher and her lazy friend listen into a group of boys plotting to explore the abandoned school nearby, and the teacher and her friend decide to join in. Then, it cuts away from the flashback and puts us into the school. Hiroshi grabs the straw doll off of her before she wakes up and activates a secret door in the cell she's in. It seems that the teacher has more to her than what meets the eye. She picks up a flashlight from a broken cupboard and continues onto a secret area hidden within the abandoned school. She knows where all of the secret buttons are, even in the dark. They activate bridges to help her get to where she needs to go to escape, but through all of the wear and tear, one of the buttons broke, meaning she has to find another way across to escape. Through a secret path in the wall, she finds a key that will be needed soon, and pushes onwards down into the canal. But when she gets into the room with the broken bridge, she can see now that the mouse somehow made it across, meaning that there is a way across, even without the bridge, but she'll need to follow the mouse to find it. The teacher enters a room at the end of the canal and uses her flashlight to find a bottle of glow-in-the-dark blue powder. This is what she can use to track the mouse. But right as she leaves the room, she hears a chirping sound, and is followed out by a new Oni. This is the Bat Oni, exclusive to the teacher's chapter. It follows her out and works exactly as the normal Ao Oni, but maybe just a little bit slower. Shortly after escaping, she goes to the mouse hole as the mouse is coming out, and gets it all over him as he runs away. Turning off the light now lets us follow the path and get out of the room and into a long hallway with jail cells. The teacher then has visions.
Are you kidding me? What were you thinking? Get me out of here. What's gonna happen to us?
These students are the same ones from the beginning. She walks forward to the next cell.
Teacher! Oh, thank goodness. Now there's nothing to worry about. I can go back. Alive. I did it.
She moves forward again to the last cell. Her friend from the beginning is waiting inside, her back turned to the teacher. She looks towards her and disappears without a word. She moves forward into the next room and climbs up a ladder, bringing her through a secret hallway and out from a woman's restroom in the school. The next room shows us a long hallway, with pictures of people all along the walls, and the continuation of the hallway shows it all being worn down by purple goo, and all of the people in the pictures are replaced with Ao Oni. All of a sudden, one of the paintings is broken, and an Ao Oni disguised as a painting breaks out and chases you out of the room. As you run, more of them come from the walls, and you can just barely escape while hiding in a bathroom stall, which doesn't actually repeat the same trick from the first game where you hear a door open and shut multiple times. The teacher comes across a broken elevator, requiring her to do a puzzle to get it fixed. After it's fixed, she returns to see a blob Oni that was stuck in the elevator previously, now blocking her path. It's very easy to get around, however, as it's very slow, and finally she gets into the elevator. She then has another flashback to when she was first entering the abandoned school with her group of friends. The teacher and her friend go off to find an entrance, and Ao Oni steps out in front of the two boys. Then it cuts back to the elevator. It isn't exactly spelled out what happened here with these people. The teacher has obviously been to the school before at a younger age. We can assume that these visions the teacher had of the kids in the cells are her guilty conscience. Just like Hiroshi, she was the only one to escape, and left all of her friends behind for dead. And now she's doing it again with Hiroshi's friends. The elevator comes to a halt. She steps out into her old school where she grew up. Rooms that she's seen countless times that have been engraved in her childhood memories are now abandoned and destroyed. Giant holes replaced classrooms she learned in. Ao Oni statues replacing all of the students she learned alongside. She gets chased by the Bat Oni once more, and finally comes to the staircase that leads to the roof. She sees Takuro Oni standing on the roof, and after escaping, she sees that the staircase to leave has been collapsed after Hiroshi used it. This means she must find another exit, so she goes up to the roof of the building. Now all of the water is drained, but the platform she built is still present. And once she continues, she can see that half of the roof has just been destroyed. Ao Oni's purple substance dripped down the side of the building and coated the top of it. The teacher has been here before though. She knows the layout, and she knows exactly where to go next. She opens a secret door on the roof, leading down a staircase to an abandoned door that needs some repair. One of the rooms is entirely on fire, and the other room activates sprinklers to fix it. She then can use the remains of the room to fix it and leave, but she's being chased, and the only option she has is to jump down a giant pit she can't see the bottom of. She survives by some miracle and escapes the school. As the teacher runs away from the school once again, leaving behind all of the people that died, she runs as fast as she can. Takuro Oni stands and watches her, knowing he won't catch up. Mika and Takeshi Oni walk out behind him, watching alongside him as she finally escapes. For once, Hiroshi isn't the only one to escape, but who knows what'll happen next. Apparently, a long time ago, a school on the outskirts of town was suddenly closed. Nobody knows why it was suddenly closed, but there was a rumor going around that it went like this. The story goes that a blue monster had appeared in an abandoned school. I saw everyone going to the abandoned school, so I was worried, and I followed them. As soon as I entered the school building, everything went dark. And with that, all of our character stories are over, but this last scenario opened up more questions than it left answered. Why did the teacher know the layout of the old abandoned school? Why was there so many hidden passageways? And what the hell started all of this? There's one last scenario to add onto this story. Hopefully it'll clear up some of the concerns raised. This happened long before Hiroshi and his friends arrived. A few years ago, strange rumors began to circulate that a school had been abandoned. There are ghosts. I can hear the students crying, etc. We play as a principal investigating the old school because of all of the rumors. This is after the school was abandoned, but still our earliest installment in this timeline. If you have a keen memory, you'll remember that there was an Oni in Hiroshi's story with the exact appearance of this principal, so we already know his fate. As the principal leaves the room he started off in, he can see the teacher at a young age walking up the stairs. We now have an idea of the time this takes place in. Why is she here in this abandoned school anyway? He follows her to find out and sees her again in the library. He says that there's something off about this room, but there's no time to dawdle, so he must keep following the teacher. Finally, he finds out where she was going, to an underground area where she speaks to someone hiding in the darkness of a cage, someone who can't be seen yet.
Is she talking to someone? Is there someone else there? I must hide and find the hangout spots of these invading students.
This cage that the teacher was talking to has the Ao Oni infection all around it, meaning that this is after its origin. Either way, something is obviously hiding within this cage. As he leaves the room, we can see what that something is. A disgusting six-legged spider Oni that moves extremely quickly. And if you think that's bad, the next room is the Oni room, containing most of the Onis we've seen before, alongside a little tiny Oni. We aren't allowed to look for too long though, as we're followed in the room by the normal Oni, so we must hide as fast as possible. And once we leave, all of the Onis are gone. The room has been infected, and the teacher is waiting for us. She says some cryptic words about it not being 0 today, but you can't really make sense of it. The principal is now too scared to investigate anymore, so his main goal now is to escape. So he continues to the other side of the Oni room. The main part of this area is a large open room where you are continuously pursued by Ao Oni. However, he's been slowed down to make it easier. If you push one of the tables into him while he's moving, he'll get stuck for good as well, allowing you free roam of the area without having to worry about a thing. In this room, you can collect a hammer and a doorknob that allows you to enter another door inside of this room. In here, you receive planks that the principal can craft into a chair with his apparent expertise in woodwork. You can get a key with this chair that's encased in stone, and it washes off in the sink for some reason. The key allows us to go back to where we came from, which is locked after we escape the Onis. When we return to that library where something seemed off, we can now see an uncovered door in the corner of the room. This room has a bunch of puzzles with rocks that don't contribute anything valuable, but the next area is where it gets interesting. A seemingly normal section of the school, but different rooms here are extremely unusual, like this big infected room with multiple squados protecting a key. They aren't hostile towards the player unless he picks up the key, in which case they chase and kill him. There's a long hallway where you can see little blue powder footsteps on the carpet, which you might think of as the mouse from the teacher's chapter, but that's impossible as the teacher's chapter takes place after this one. I'm not actually quite sure why these footsteps are here. Down this hallway though, there's a room that seems normal at first. But as the principal enters, he hears a sound behind him getting closer and closer. When you move deeper in the room, Spider Oni enters and kills you almost immediately because of his speed. Another path in the hallway has us go upstairs, to which the principal exclaims that it's like an entirely different school. I could be wrong, but what I understand here is that there are two different schools here that are connected. One was abandoned a long time ago, and the other still has students coming to it, like the teacher. The teacher then went to visit the abandoned school with other kids, and she was the only survivor. In present day, both schools have been abandoned, leaving Ao Oni to take over the newer school alongside the abandoned one. This room leads to the roof, in a less deteriorated state than the one we see as the teacher in her chapter. There's a switch for us to pick up that we can use in the squatter room to lock them all behind metallic doors and pick up that key we were guarding so heavily. The key leads to a room where we push a table down a hole and are now able to block the Spider Oni from catching us. And that whole thing was to get a dirty film that we use on a projector to get a code to the door. This leads to the final section, with less impressive puzzles that eventually lead us to the front door of the school. The principal runs down the stairs for his life, and turns the handle of the door just for it to not open. He gets a running start and tries to smash the door open, but it's futile. He then hears a sound behind him, and turns to see Spider Oni closing in on him slowly. This is the fate of the principal. What we see next might help fill in some gaps. The teacher is at the now destroyed cage that the Spider Oni broke out of. It's then subtly hinted that the teacher turned her lazy friend into an Oni, as she says, always making a mess, but never cleaning it up, and that she should have stopped the exploration. And that marks the end of the sequel to the infamous Ao Oni game. It definitely could have been a lot better. It has so many amazing ideas that are just not implemented in a very good way. The scenarios idea in particular was amazing, and it keeps the story consistent and answers so many questions while being able to implement unique ideas that wouldn't work for the main story. Overall, for a return to the series after a 5-year hiatus, this wasn't a very bad attempt. The most controversial part is it being exclusively released on mobile for some reason. There's also this weird feature in all of the mobile games where you can unlock masks for Ao Oni that make him look different for some reason. This is also the reason why he might have looked differently in some of the footage I used, because you unlock a mask for Ao Oni that matches the look of a character in a scenario you complete, and I just enabled it without really paying attention. This sequel also has a very fair amount of content in it. My playthrough lasting around 9 hours in total, even with using a few walkthroughs occasionally. It's definitely nowhere near as good as the first game, but they seem to know what they're doing, and I hope that the same energy is applied when we're going into Ao Oni 3, but that isn't the next thing we're covering, because now we are covering what I believe is one of the best things to come out of this franchise as a whole. Ao Oni version 2 is an indirect sequel containing a different cast and retelling of the story from the first movie. The version 2.0 name is very accurate here. You might have seen some of the marketing for this movie or a couple scenes from the movie in GIFs or other memes alike. This movie was easier to come across, and I was able to download a full version of the movie with English subtitles burnt in as opposed to me having to find everything separately. It starts off exactly how the game does, with a text box reading, "There is this unoccupied suburban house. Rumors go that monsters live there." We immediately see that these rumors are true, as we're shown two people who broke into the mansion being killed by Ao Oni. He's shown as a terrifying enemy, smiling as the woman breathes heavily and cries out of fear before he quickly eats her, and we're shown the title card for the movie. The movie starts off in a school with Takuro, Takeshi, and Mika. Mika criticizes Takuro for pulling a prank on Shun and says he hasn't been to school in a while. Takuro then walks away and looks at a photo of him and Naoki on his phone before deleting it. This hints that Naoki is still dead, but this time he dies off-screen rather than at the beginning. Mika sees Takeshi looking at a photo of the jailhouse on his phone where Ao Oni resides. Takeshi says that he wants to break in and steal stuff, and they discuss rumors of it being haunted by a giant blueberry-colored monster. We're then showed Anna and Hiroshi discussing Shun and Naoki. Before Hiroshi can say anything meaningful, a butterfly distracts him, leading him to the jailhouse, which Takuro and his gang are already outside. Hiroshi scares Takuro, in which he responds by pushing him over and almost breaking his glasses. Hiroshi gets up after this and starts following the damn butterfly again, and it leads him into the jailhouse. From here, Hiroshi splits up from the group and picks up the plate shard. Meanwhile, Takeshi streams Takuro messing around in the entrance. That's when Takeshi suddenly noticed something behind Takuro off-screen, and screamed before running away. This beginning is much closer to how Ao Oni version 6.23 was, even having Takeshi run all the way to a closet upstairs. Takuro and Mika joke about Takeshi, and they run off to try and scare him. As they do, however, the camera pans to show Ao Oni hiding in the darkness, being our first vision of Ao Oni in this movie. This is actually a terrifying shot. It immediately paints him as a predator, dominantly stalking his prey. After this, we finally get our first look at Shun and Anna. They aren't a part of the group exploring the mansion this time. Anna notices that the characters in the game Shun is developing look similar to their friends in real life, and then they're able to see his game moving by itself. It's linked to the group in the mansion, and he's able to see everything happening in real time. They don't say anything about it yet though, as they probably can't even tell what's going on. We're then able to see Mika and Takuro looking for Takeshi to bully him, but Mika is the one who ends up getting screwed over by Takuro.
やっぱバカなのなお前。そんな細っこいドライバーじゃあかんねえよ。自分の頭のネジでも締め直してろ。
Takuro sees a closet Takeshi could be hiding in, so he opens it to see Ao Oni cramped up in a tiny little closet somehow, opening his eyes to stare at them as they stare back in shock. Takuro runs away, leaving Mika alone with the monster. She runs after him, but it's no use as Takuro gets away and Mika trips down the stairs, begging for him to help her. The monster follows after, and looks at her as he slowly approaches. She holds up the screwdriver to defend herself, and stabs him as he gets closer, and it does nothing. Her friends hear one last scream from her before Ao Oni turns her into Lunchly. Shun uses his computer to try and figure out what's going on in the game, and sees a live stream on his other monitor. Hiroshi is live streaming from inside the mansion, and Shun watches. He tells that he's trapped in the jailhouse alongside 3 of his friends. Hiroshi begs for help as Shun pieces together what's happening. The monster he's created is killing all of his friends. Shun watches his monitor as Hiroshi runs from Ao Oni after he killed Mika. Hiroshi, being a good friend of Shun's, actually recognizes what's going on as well. He knows that he's in Shun's game, and luckily also remembers how to escape the mansion based on the game. Takuro crashes out as he's being told all of this, and gets even angrier when he's told that this is probably his fault. He says straight to Hiroshi's face that he and Shun deserve to die for this. We then see Shun confirm this as he's speaking to Anna. It makes him happy to see Takuro repeatedly die over and over again inside of his game, but none of it was ever supposed to happen, and for that he feels regret. Hiroshi now makes a plan to escape. He draws on a mirror showing a layout of the mansion and teaches Takuro about a 4th ghost floor that doesn't actually exist on the outside, but only on the inside. Since this floor doesn't actually exist, there's a bug inside of it that allows them to reset the game. If this bug exists in reality, that means that they can get Mika back to life and escape the mansion as if they never even went inside. It isn't that simple though, because the keys are in the basement. Takuro then goes to find Takeshi to see if he's still alive, and finds Takeshi butt naked covered in blue paint. What the fuck? This strategy proves pointless as Takeshi dies right after. Hiroshi and Takuro head into the basement and see Ao Oni running towards them in a giant tunnel. Hiroshi says that there is no more time to dawdle, and they stand there for 10 more seconds before running and closing a jail door behind them. And like any good Ao Oni adaptation, we get to see him behind jail bars trying to break in. Hiroshi's knowledge ends here though, as this is part of the mansion that Shun added without telling him. As they stare at the room, they hear a little squeaking noise behind them and turn to see Fuwari! Little guy runs toward them while laughing and slams into a wall accidentally. Takuro makes fun of him, but Hiroshi knows to be careful, as there could be something he's hiding. And something he's hiding there is, as Fuwari runs past him again and gets bigger when he hits a wall. There's tons of these guys, everywhere. Now more than ever they need to speed things up. As Takuro falls on the ground, he looks back up at the staircase and sees Hiroshi running away. Takuro runs all he can, but eventually, Hiroshi crushes Fuwari with a giant block of cement. You thought I was gonna say Takuro died, didn't you? They use a prop that Takuro held on since their argument to reveal a code to a key. This key isn't the ghost key, however, so Hiroshi flips the prop around and the key transforms. Takuro helps an injured Hiroshi up the stairs, but they stop for a minute before going up to the 4th floor. This might be the last time that they see each other if this doesn't work. Hiroshi explains that he's had trouble understanding Takuro, and Takuro had trouble understanding Shun, but now as they come to a final stop, they both understand. With how cruel Takuro can be, Shun wanted to make up his own little world to vent and make himself feel better. So now, no matter what ends up happening, they have their closure. Takuro and Hiroshi head up to the 4th floor and see 2 different doors on either ends of a hallway. One door is wrong and one door is right. They hear a loud growling noise. Hiroshi can't go on anymore. He tells Takuro that his game is over, and Takuro must push on for the group. He now trusts Takuro to do the right thing, seeing how much he's changed since they entered this mansion together. He yells at Takuro, telling him that he needs to reset the game. Hiroshi stands in the middle of the hallway, and Ao Oni walks up behind him. Just like that, Hiroshi is killed. But there's a problem. Takuro walks up to the door and sees a symbol on it. Shun from outside yells up to Takuro, telling him which door he's supposed to open. Takuro is at the wrong door, but the right door is on the other side of the hallway, on the other side of Ao Oni. They stand face to face. Takuro thinks back on what Hiroshi told him. This is a world that only makes sense to Shun. He starts running straight at Ao Oni and slides right under him. He tries to spin around to catch him, but it's too late. Takuro breaks through the doors and resets the world back to before they enter the jailhouse. Everyone is alive again, and now they never have to enter that mansion. There's a post-credit scene of Takeshi walking up to the mansion, and a giant Godzilla Ao Oni emerges from behind the mansion. Probably not canon, so it's whatever. That wraps up Ao Oni version 2, which means that we are done with the live-action film adaptations. I think that this movie is nearly the best that it can be with the source material. It's easy to compare to the first movie, as they do tell the same story, but with some minor and major differences here and there. But this second movie is undoubtedly better. Fuwadi and Ao Oni both look amazing here, and they really perfected Ao Oni's look since the first movie. His eyes make him look more predatory here, and that's extremely noticeable in the movie with all the close-ups of his face. The criticism I had from the first movie is pretty much all invalid here now. The camera angles are great, the lighting complements every scene very well, and this time the plot isn't all over the place like it was with the first. I think you can pick up on the message this movie portrays way easier, and I'm glad they went down a different route for it. You don't really notice much of a difference between Ao Oni's models between the movies when you're watching. If you compare renders of them side by side, one very obviously takes the cake. Now, for Fuwadi's film debut, he actually looks very faithful to the game, but at the same time his design feels so much different. It's kind of hard to put into words how he looks, other than maybe silly? I mean, how can you not like this guy? Every time he runs around, he giggles to himself. As a whole, I'd say Ao Oni version 2.0 is a great film adaptation, and for once I can say that the people behind an Ao Oni product locked the fuck in. I was planning to talk about Ao Oni 3 after the second movie, but there's actually a few things that I missed. When Ao Oni released on mobile, they released a couple more scenarios alongside the first game, and also a new scenario for Ao Oni 2 to tease Ao Oni 3, so we have a little bit of preparation to do before we can get into it. At the end of the finalized version of Ao Oni, we see a mysterious man get killed. Well, it took long enough, but now we can learn the story of that man, why he entered the mansion in the first place, and what led to his demise. He enters the mansion and yells out calling for someone. He finds a handbook on the ground that looks familiar to him and then looks for more clues. Most of this scenario is just filler puzzles, the man running around counting letters and numbers and colors and whatever else. But eventually he gets followed into a room by Mika Oni and cornered. They look face to face for a minute, before Mika Oni turns around and leaves the room. We now know that this takes place after the events of the original story, and also that we are playing as Mika's father. The puzzles continue on into the annex and annex basement, until the man is cornered once again by Mika Oni. Finally, he recognizes her as Mika, and says that he's her father. He says he knows that it's her because she spared him, and once again she walks away from him. He now has one mission: escape the mansion and tell everyone to rescue his daughter. He heads back to the front and does a few puzzles to get the key, but gets so scared by Ao Oni that he drops the key and runs to the front door. He tries to break it down, but there's no use. The man's story ends exactly as we saw it in the first game, and the myth of Ao Oni remains just that, a myth. There's one other scenario in the first game of a little girl who gets trapped in some kind of weird basement. There's a cool mechanic here where the girl is too scared of the dark to continue on, so she has to move the light bulb to be able to access the other side of the area. When she gets to the other side, she sees Ao Oni and has to loop him around very close to escape and hide. This entire location is pretty cool to see in game, and it's all completely brand new rooms, and even introduces some new locations we didn't see anything similar to until Ao Oni 3. Something I feel like I should mention on the side here is that the puzzles feel so much better in this side story specifically. I was able to do every single one of them without using a guide, and I've had to use a guide for almost every game so far. Maybe that says more about me than the puzzles though. Eventually, after the little girl repairs a trolley with tires and gasoline, which it's kind of absurd that she knows how to do that, gets to a final room where she finds doors that won't open. The doors behind her lock, and she's trapped inside. She asks if the person who locked the door is from the island, and notices the entire room starts shaking. She cries as the doors in front of her open, and Ao Oni breaks through to eat her. Before this scenario ends, she describes how cold she feels. She's not sure if she's dead, but then in the darkness, she finds her mom. This is a teaser for Ao Oni 3. We'll see this girl and her mom when we start talking about it, but we have one more scenario in Ao Oni 2 to talk about, another teaser for Ao Oni 3. Now, this scenario doesn't really have a single redeeming quality. Its puzzles are the worst in the entirety of the series. It's just a drag, and I only completed it because I followed the steps in a walkthrough video. Regardless, I will briefly mention the story of the scenario. We play as a traveler that forgot everything after his boat broke down. He walks around trying to remember how he got here, and eventually pieces start coming together. He remembers being dragged on the island by a girl, and remembers a note that he wrote for himself. He finds the note and relearns about a mansion near the hospital he's inside of, which he can see from outside of the window. He now tries to find a way to escape. He gets the key to leave and does just that, standing on the edge of the island as he stares out into the ocean. This is the island in Ao Oni 3, the place that we'll be exploring the ins and outs of, every point of interest on this map, and once again, losing all of our friends on. We start off on a boat in the middle of the ocean. Takeshi, Mika, Takuro, and Hiroshi are all alive and well. We learn from dialogue that this group is coming back from a remote island school trip. Inside of the ship, we come across a mother and her child. The girl is crying because she lost her handkerchief, so we, as the nice guy we are, go and find it inside of the ship. When we bring it back, the mother tells the girl to thank her big brother. She turns to us and thanks us, calling us big brother, revealing that this girl is our sister, and this woman is our mother. The ship comes across a large storm, crashing the ship and leaving us stranded. We're in a cave with rocks scattered around everywhere. We've lucked out because there's a pathway leading into an indoor area. Ao Oni is present as we see him walk by in the corner just like we've seen numerous times before. We're able to gather a screwdriver from a hole in the wall and pick up a key from a cupboard, and then hide in a new hiding spot right outside of this room, which is a well. As we continue progressing through this cave, we hear a child crying, and Hiroshi identifies it as the girl on the boat, which is kind of strange considering that this girl is his sister. We walk forward to see this girl's mother, who asks us for help finding her daughter. The door next to her is shut firmly, so we have no way of opening it, but there is a path to go to the right, leading us outside. Hiroshi looks around and realizes that they're on an island, knowing that nobody will come to help. He lets the woman in the cave know what he's seen, which includes a deteriorated hospital building he was able to spot. Trying to find anyone else that could be on the island, he moves to the hospital and enters. Most of this hospital is just puzzles to move on to the next area. They're all mediocre, so I'm probably going to skip over all of them except for a few. Eventually, one of these puzzles leads back to the hospital, where we meet with Takeshi.
Takeshi! Hiroshi! When I woke up, I found myself washed up on a strange beach. I came to the hospital to find out, but there was nobody but a blue monster!
They were in a cave nearby. Maybe they're all over the island. Everybody else is probably alive too. Let's all escape from this island.
That's right!
The puzzles as Takeshi involve putting severed limbs into the right coffins, and then pressing buttons in the right sequence to eventually get to a room Hiroshi is in. They travel together, Ao Oni jumps out of a body bag to chase them, but eventually they get into an elevator, and are just barely able to close it in time before Ao Oni breaks the doors and catches them. They make it down to the bottom floor, into a room with a bunch of furnaces.
Hey, look at this. There's an incinerator. I can smell burning.
Takeshi, it's dangerous to look around too much.
Wait a second.
Takeshi gets chased out of the room by Ao Oni, which would normally be a bad thing, but in this case, Takeshi is lucky to be away. Hiroshi watches as a blue hand sticks out from a body tray, and it opens to reveal a zombified Ao Oni. There's two of them that chase you around this room while you try to make progress on turning a valve. They're slower than you, but fast enough to where you can't slip past them. Eventually, after turning the valve enough, Hiroshi leaves the hospital to look for Takeshi again, and maybe find someone else. He looks around and sees an abandoned mansion, so he enters. A lot of the puzzles here aren't very thought out. You can literally brute force most of them easily. There's only a few that I understood, and trust me, I did my best to try and understand all of them. I ended up using a guide to solve most of this area. At the top of the mansion, like literally upstairs, there was an entire church somehow. While this room makes no sense structurally, I do like its design, and it looks way better than it did in version 6.23. After around 30 minutes of running around and doing puzzles, Hiroshi finally gains access to the basement, which is where Mika is stuck. She's in a jail cell across a giant hole in the floor, making it impossible for us to reach her. There's a few more rooms down here we're able to access, so eventually Hiroshi gets his hands on a phone that he doesn't use to call for help. Instead, he uses it to scan a QR code, and before we know what it does, our control switches to Mika. Interacting with the door makes the bookshelf fly across the room, leaving a hole in the wall behind. The infrastructure of this mansion will never make sense to me, because why the hell would the basement be this big, and then there'd be a jail cell in the basement that's in front of the hallway, with a bunch of lounge rooms that's apparently entirely closed off because both of the ways in and out of it are broken holes in the wall, one of them being at the top of a staircase somehow. This is when Mika and Hiroshi finally meet, and are able to see each other, but when Hiroshi goes over to see her, a puppet Oni drops down from the ceiling and blocks his path. It turns around and immediately kills Mika, leaving not even a second for us to save her, and then it goes back up into the ceiling. The door locks behind, so now Hiroshi is forced to go into a hole in the wall and enter a boss fight against the puppet Oni. The way it works has a shadow appear on the floor, which the puppet drops down on and then runs in a straight line trying to get you. To avoid it, just stay out of any direction it can dash at you from after dropping. There's 5 buttons in this room that you need to press in order, and then after doing so, you're able to leave and end the boss fight. These boss fights are in every location at the end of them, and it marks a new formula for Ao Oni games moving onward. They appear throughout this game and the next. I think that it's actually a pretty good formula they've crafted, and it works very well for these games, especially after they perfect it in the next game. The boss fights can be very unique and offer an easy way to introduce new Oni variants. I think it would be a lot cooler if these variants were actually built upon and we could learn more about them and how they came to be, especially if you could read notes that hint towards them. The reveals for these Onis would hit so much harder if that was the case. That's not to say the reveals aren't good already, I think they do exactly what they're meant to. Hiroshi escapes the mansion, and yes, that giant boss battle room was also a part of it, and he goes to the amusement park to try and find Takeshi or Takuro. Immediately upon entering, Takeshi can be heard screaming from inside. He doesn't respond to our calls, screaming no as we can only presume Ao Oni chases him. Now, there's a little rant I want to go on about this place. There's a room here that when you enter, it puts you in a massive black empty void. The only thing here is Hiroshi. This is a bug that has remained in the game since sometime after 2018. It makes the game literally impossible to play through normally. The way the game works has your device load rooms over the internet from a server. The server no longer has the room that is required to enter this area, causing the game to be soft locked when you enter the room, and you have to enter this room to continue the area. Luckily, there's a workaround for this that was discovered by a Japanese user named Hawk, and AdPro, who voices Takuro in this video, uploaded a tutorial for how we can get past this. I will explain this method later, but for now we can go over what's supposed to happen as content creator I can't pronounce the name. As content creator Hiryu, I think I pronounced that maybe kinda right, has allowed me to use his video's footage for this part. Massive thanks to him for the footage you're going to see in this location. He's linked in the description as the voice of one of the unnamed students at the end of Ao Oni V5.2, and he's made a lot of gameplay videos on Ao Oni and other games, so check him out if you want. This amusement park is actually a really awesome location. There's rides all around, a shop, vending machines galore. It's very detailed and fun to explore. The other locations were kind of boring in comparison as there isn't much detail to add to a mansion or hospital, other than the church I guess. There's even little teacup rides in one of the rooms that Ao Oni rides on before chasing you. There's a lot of room here to make things creepy, like the clown trash cans or the close-up of the carousel horse with a puzzle written on it. It's kind of a shame that a large portion of this location is spent in an underground basement that looks a lot like the areas in Ao Oni 2. Eventually, Hiroshi comes across a big open area where Ao Oni steps out of a roller coaster. Takeshi lies on the ground here. As you walk up to him and see if he's alive, a new clown Oni emerges from the shadows. But there's actually 3 of them. A really good chase theme remix plays, which you can hear in the background right now as the chase starts. The Oni in the middle is slower than the others, but has a fast dash move just like Fuwadi. They all have numbers on their backs, relating to little Oni statues with their colors. Hiroshi has to break these statues in the order of the numbers. If he breaks the wrong one, Sonic Oni kills him. After all 3 of the statues are broken, the clown Onis disappear. Hiroshi picks up a key that was dropped from them and goes back to the cave where that mother was waiting outside of the door hoping to save her child. He catches up with the woman, hoping that the key that was dropped can be used to open the big door. It's not the right key, but the woman recognizes it as a key that could be used for a temple, unlocking the final location on the map. Now I will explain the method to get to the temple and get around the black room. On the screen where you select different scenarios, you can play the different boss battles in the game in a harder difficulty than in the main story. One of these boss battles, of course, is the Clown Oni boss battle that we just saw. After beating the harder version of the boss battle, you can save the game and walk into the exit door while pressing the menu button at the same time. If you do it correctly, you'll advance to the next area of the game with no items. However, the screwdriver from the first location is required to beat the game. You're able to fast travel to the cave and get the screwdriver and then go back to the temple. This method literally took me 3 hours of getting up to the carnival over and over again, repeating my footsteps. It was such a pain in the ass, but it allowed me to continue the game from after the carnival area, and luckily there are no more black room bugs in the game. Now finally, Hiroshi advances into the temple. When you think of a temple, you'd think it'd be a lot cooler than a mix of the old school from Ao Oni 2 and the mansion from this game, but somehow it is literally that but worse. None of the puzzles here make sense. For one of them, you literally have to use the screwdriver on a shoe to get a keycard. One of these doors leads to another jail cell-like room, and Hiroshi can finally meet with Takuro again. Their dialogue is literally almost a one-to-one replica from Ao Oni V6.23. Maybe Ao Oni is just a horror game reenactment of the Groundhog Day film. We gain control of Takuro, and the enemy he has to avoid is Fuwari, except it's the dumbed-down one that doesn't know how to dash right. Takuro gets a code to a keypad and then walks through a tunnel to meet with Hiroshi. They go to meet up with the mother and her daughter, but debris falls from the ceiling, forcing them to use a separate path. The mouse returns again from the second game, for pretty much no reason, and Hiroshi and Takuro notice something on a shelf right before they're about to leave.
There's a photo album.
It looks pretty old. The date on this is from 100 years ago. That means people used to live here that long ago.
There's still a photo in here.
What's wrong, Hiroshi?
How is this photo here?
You're kidding. I said before that I didn't see those people on the ship.
I had a conversation with them on the boat. I picked up the handkerchief and her mother is still in the cave.
Let's go to the cave.
The mother and her daughter are hiding something. They come from this island and they might have had something to do with the crash. Somehow, Hiroshi was able to talk to them on the boat, even though they weren't there. Like something Hiroshi imagined, but these people are real. This photo is evidence. Hiroshi and Takuro enter the next room, and notice something behind them as they do. A giant golden hand. And then, tens of them start emerging. This is the Thousand Hands Oni, the final boss of Ao Oni 3. Right as they start running away, Takuro trips, and Hiroshi is forced to leave him behind. Hiroshi goes back to the cave after escaping the temple, and stands in front of the giant door. He then says that his mother is missing. The key from the photo album opens the doors, and the mother and her daughter are gone. There's a ship at the end of this large hallway. Hiroshi turns around, and the location starts shaking as he sees the girl. She confirms that Hiroshi is her big brother, and thanks him for finding us. Hiroshi finally pieces together what's happening. His sister and mother lived on this island long ago, and they were killed by a blue monster. They are the ghosts of this island. He was the only one who could see them. Now his sister wants to show him her true self. She disappears as the lights go dim, and as they turn back on, the final boss battle starts. Thousand Hands Oni chases Hiroshi down a long hallway as he has to avoid the hands trying to catch him. At the end of the hallway, Hiroshi sees a ship. He runs quickly to the ship and gets in, driving off as the hand tries to catch him. After that, I was rescued by a large ship that happened to be passing by. Before I knew it, I was in a deep sleep. I woke up and was at home. I looked at a lot of maps, but the island I was on isn't listed anywhere. Takuro and the others are still missing. This is the end of Ao Oni 3's main storyline. It's improved in a lot of ways from Ao Oni 2. The reveal at the end is very impactful, and the boss battle, while being so easy that a toddler could make their way through it, was a very cool concept and very unique compared to everything else in the game. Showing us the entire map of locations creates a clear understanding of where certain sections or chapters of the game start and end. The locations used were kind of garbage other than the amusement park, which was literally broken, and that's pretty much my main criticism for this game. I was kind of harsh about the puzzles. You could probably get through them all on your own eventually. I just didn't like them and used a guide because of that. Anyway, there's still the extra scenarios for this game to cover, in the order showed on screen, starting off with Takeshi. Takeshi stands outside in the middle of a forest clearing. This takes place after him and Hiroshi get split up because of the zombie Onis. He has a flashback to when they were on the ship, as if we needed any more ship gameplay, and walks up to Hiroshi. Hiroshi is talking to the mother and daughter, but Takeshi is unable to see them. The ship crashes and the flashback ends. Takeshi continues forward until he finds a staircase in the middle of the woods, and he goes down it. This area is similar to the old building from the first game. There's a bedroom here next to a room with a bunch of mirrors, a couple rooms with wells on either side, and somehow, despite the fact that this location is underground, there's a staircase leading to a hallway. Takeshi can get his hands on a bag full of blue blood, a razor, and 2 broken parts that somehow came together to make a bowl. Now that we have our bowl full of Ao, a mirror magically forms out of thin air that can be used to solve the puzzle in the next room. It unlocks a door and Takeshi hears someone scream for help as he enters. In this area, there's a section with 4 doors in each direction, and there's no way in hell you're gonna guess what Takeshi says as he enters one of the rooms.
Oh, I feel sick. Feels like I'm disrupting the space-time continuum.
The fucking what? Okay, this is one of the weirdest things to happen in the lore of this series. Anyway, this puzzle is very stereotypical, and you've probably seen it multiple times before. You have to enter the rooms in the right order to get to the other side. Doing so gives you a key to a hallway, and on the other side is a large open dark room. This room works similar to the little girl scenario in the Ao Oni 1 mobile remake. Takeshi can enter the dark room in this one, but when he does, he's pursued by a bat Oni. There's lights around that he has to travel between to get to the different rooms. In one of these rooms, there's a man on the floor, the Traveler from Ao Oni 2. It seems we're too late. Takeshi reveals that the Traveler is actually his uncle and tries to get him to speak. The last thing he's able to say before he dies is Mika, meaning that he's met her, foreshadowing her scenario, which we'll see him in again. Takeshi then leaves and finds a bottle that he fills with water. There's a door in one of the rooms that Takeshi says is so hot that the actual metal door is starting to deteriorate. He's able to cool it off with just a room temperature water bottle and go inside. He gets a picture frame from inside and a picture from a random place outside of the underground location. He can place these in a room where he found the Traveler to play Find the Difference and get a code to a keypad, allowing him to escape the area and enter this game's Oni room. He has to cross this room, but the only way across is on a very thin wall that he must keep his balance on as he crosses. Eventually, he can get to the other side and pick up a box with a button on it, but before he's able to do anything with it, Ao Oni breaks out of the wall in front of him and starts chasing him. Now he has to get across the Oni room and keep his balance while he's being chased. Ao Oni moves the same speed on this somehow, not even having to keep his balance, but eventually Takeshi reaches the other side and the chase stops. Now is the boss battle of Takeshi's scenario, which is kind of the worst one in the entire game. Ao Oni is a pirate for some reason, even though there's no pirate mechanics, and he chases you across a bunch of these balance beams. All you have to do is press all of the buttons while Pirate Oni is too slow to catch you. Takeshi escapes the room and runs to the amusement park, which is where we see him dead as Hiroshi. The next scenario, as hinted by the Traveler, is Mika's scenario. She wakes up right next to water, presumably after being washed ashore. She has her own flashback to the ship that literally adds nothing to the scene before she gets chased into a cave, very similar to the cave that Hiroshi was in during the main story. Her scenario introduces computers that require passcodes other than numbers, with this one needing a passcode that's a nod back to the first game. There's a room with a doll in it with a single red eye, and turning the lights off shows the word burn on the doll. That is the passcode. In this room, Nike-chan the mouse makes a return from the second game. She plays a major part in this scenario, and Mika must gain her trust. To do this, Mika flips a lever and turns off the lights in a room to reveal Ao Oni's forbidden cheese hiding in the corner. She lures Nike-chan out with the cheese and has to do some puzzle from Ao Oni 2 with rocks to capture her. Once she does, she can put her down into the mouse hole, and we're able to control Nike-chan. She grabs a key and a weird puzzle piece, then brings him back to Mika. This puzzle piece, and another one I picked up earlier without telling you, are used on an item frame, once again similar to the first game in the ending part where Takuro turns into an Oni. Once Mika deciphers the code, she enters the next room and sees the Traveler on the floor. She's able to help him up and bring him to a hospital. You might notice that this is the same hospital room that he wakes up in during the scenario in Ao Oni 2. There's another mouse hole where Nike-chan is used, but she got greedy now, so we'll have to get more cheese for her. Whenever she walks past the white line, she can't stop going in a straight line, forcing us to do a puzzle like the ones in Undertale with the icy floor. There's a key on the other side, and when Mika obtains it, she can use it to open the door in the room with the Traveler, and pick up a piece of paper with a bunch of symbols from a set of playing cards on them. This paper is fake though, and we'll need to peel it back in the corner to be able to get a see-through paper with one of each item on it. We used this icon on the weird puzzle from before to get the code to the door, which is actually kind of clever. Mika can finally escape, and she does just that, but before she can run away, Squatto walks up behind her. This is the boss battle for her scenario, which is extremely lazy. They use a character that already exists when there's probably a lot of unused masks for them to use instead. At the end of this chase, Mika enters the mansion and falls onto a trap and through the floor, leading her to wake up in the cell, where Hiroshi meets her. Mika's scenario ends there, leaving us halfway done with the extra scenarios. The next one is Takuro's, and entering it has him waking up in another, even more boring cave than the ones in the other scenarios. It's a very short section, however, and he enters the temple quickly. Pretty much the entirety of Takuro's scenario takes place here, and is even the area we find him in during the main story. However, this time, it takes place almost entirely outside. One of the good puzzles here has you being chased by Ao Oni, and you need to make him step on 2 different buttons to activate a machine. There's also an underwater section here with the same fish Oni enemy, and the water doesn't let you go through because of how rough the pressure is. Those buttons Ao Oni stepped on turn the pressure down, and you can continue. This time, as you go though, you're chased by Spider Oni instead of the normal Oni. Throughout this entire area, Takuro collects little talismans, and the last one was on the other side of the water area, so now he can place them on little Oni statues in the right order, giving him a coin to enter the temple. Nothing happens other than a few puzzles to get into the cell that Hiroshi finds him in. The scenario doesn't end here though. It skips to the part where Hiroshi and Takuro are trying to leave together and are followed by Thousand Hands Oni. Takuro falls over and loses his consciousness. Somehow, miraculously, Takuro survived this and wakes up underground. There's only one way to go, and as he goes, Thousand Hands Oni chases him from behind. It's another maze just like the staircase at the end of the last game, and when Takuro gets to the end, he walks to the edge of the island and looks back, being cornered. Thousand Hands Oni and Takuro stand face to face for a moment before he's run into. Takuro's scenario ends here. Many ships have gone missing near this island, and none of its mysteries have been solved. All that we know is the amount of monsters on the island reflects the amount of people who have gone missing near it. After that, nobody saw Takuro, Mika, or Takeshi ever again. There's one scenario remaining, and this face has no significance yet. Before we head into the scenario, let me give you a little bit of prior context. At the end of the teacher scenario in Ao Oni 2, this person and a few of his friends were shown inside of the school with the teacher. We didn't learn anything about them, but it showed that this teacher got into the school a 3rd time. We already know that the teacher is hiding something, and I could understand going into the school once with your friends and escaping alive. Hell, I could even understand doing it a 2nd time to try and save Hiroshi and his friends. But for the teacher to enter the school a 3rd time with more people? Now it's obvious that she's doing this on purpose. And since she knows so much about the ins and outs of the school, and also was here in the beginning when the monsters first came to life and killed the principal, she is truly untrustworthy. Thankfully, Ao Oni X, which is the game we're going to be talking about after this scenario, helps us craft a theory as to why this is. Anyway, there's more to learn, so let's dive right in. The words that the teacher says in the jail cell to explain herself being trapped alongside them are the exact same words in the ending monologue after her scenario, about following them because she was worried. Tetsuya, who is our main character, picks up a key and they all walk together outside of the cell. The teacher and Saki, the girl, wait inside of the cell, while Yuki comes with us to the library. Here, we can find a scrubber and go back to the cell, revealing a hole in the floor, and the others are missing. The hole leads to a cave where we see Ao Oni for the first time. When we get to go to the next area, we're followed by the Oni, and our friend decides to be a decoy for some reason despite the fact that we were going to be fine escaping together. We're now left alone for the next area, that's filled with cats and switches to turn the lights down. At the highest setting, the cats look normal. For the medium setting, their eyes get a little wider, and when the lights are off, the cats start tweaking off the za. There's a banner telling us how the cats should be, and if we follow it, the door is unlocked, allowing us to meet up with Yuki again, who somehow got here before us. We pick up a blue and red sphere from the statues on either side of the room, and place them down, allowing us access to a hole in the ground. Down here, there's a big room with 2 squatters in it, a room with a computer trap that Portrait Oni kills you when you go near, and a few different rooms that eventually get us a power cord to turn on the computer from the start. We're given an elementary school level puzzle on the computer where we have to guess the next number in a sequence of them, and that number is used as the code to the door, leading us to a boss fight. This boss fight seems like the easiest thing in the entire world at first, making us direct a slow Oni onto 5 different buttons in order, but after we get him to go on the 3rd button, Fuwadi breaks in. It's still fairly easy because Fuwadi can walk on the buttons too, and after the 5th button is pressed, the door opens, letting us enter. Inside, we see our friends, and the teacher's friends from her scenario in the 2nd game. Saki says that the others won't listen to her. As they try to catch up with each other, Ao Oni breaks out of the floor in front of them. They run over to be with the other people, hoping that they can outnumber him. But Squatto and Portrait Oni come out of the doors on each side, trapping them in and ending their scenario. It turns out that underground, many people are running away from the blue monster, but this was not known to those on Earth. After that, nobody saw the students ever again. And that ends the last scenario in Ao Oni 3. There's a massive story unraveling here, and for once it seems like we're actually getting somewhere, learning about who could be the villains of this franchise, and context to the locations that these Onis reside. These mobile games are building up to something, and they've evolved so far from the first game in the series. This third game even shows a huge development from the second. There's still a massive piece of the puzzle missing, and at the end of this video I want to try to put everything together the best that I can. There's only one game left to talk about now, and it improves in quality of gameplay, story, art, and finally fills in that huge missing gap on what the origin of Ao Oni is. Ao Oni X is the latest installment in the series, and it's a story with branching paths, meaning that the different choices you make throughout it will affect the outcome and give you different endings. This seems like a great thing to base your game around when the last two choices in previous games worked fine.
Are you fucking my ass?
At first, I felt really lightheaded. Like something would happen after this. I didn't expect it. I just wanted to make fun memories with everyone. That's what I was thinking. This game starts off in a school, but don't worry, it's just for the opening scene. It's nothing like Ao Oni 2. Litmus has learned from their mistakes and is no longer retracing their own footsteps. Hiroshi sees his friends and walks up to them to conversate. Takuro tells the group that he wants to begin live streaming on the internet and become a famous streamer, with the help of his cameraman Takeshi. He'll do anything that it takes to go viral, and he thinks that the best place to start is by making horror videos and testing his courage with ghosts. This actually lines up with the live-action movie when Takeshi and Takuro were doing just that, but this is the first time it's shown in a game. As they keep talking about this, a blue-haired woman walks up to them. This woman is Chitose, one of the new members of the group that will be present throughout the entire game, but none of these guys know that yet. Chitose tells the group about a bus stop that stops at a place where nobody gets off, but it always stops there. North of this bus stop, there's a long pitch-black tunnel with an abandoned village at the other end of it. Little did this group know, it was not abandoned. It seems that there's a civilization here that presumably nobody knows about other than the people inside of it. The group is greeted by a man with a long white beard and hair, telling us that it's very unusual that they have any guests. After the group explains why they're here, they're offered to stay the night at this village inside of an inn to the west. They don't seem to have any money on them, but they still need to head to the inn to check it out. Unfortunately, the innkeeper has lost his key somewhere in the village, meaning that this group has to find the keys for him, as he's too much of a bum to find them himself. When the group finally does this and gets inside, they're congratulated for being the 100th group to stay at the inn and get to stay the night for free out of luck. Just like those scam ads for a free iPhone you see on the side of sketchy websites. Somehow, the group falls for this, and they all head upstairs. This is when we get our first choice in the game, which doesn't have any consequences. Mika has a blue and red gem and wants to give one of them to Takuro. She lets us choose which one to give him. We don't immediately see the effects of this, so I will bring it up when they matter. That marks the end of the night, and the group goes to sleep. Unfortunately, Hiroshi wakes up in the middle of the night, and all of his friends are missing. When he stands up to look for them, he can hear Chitose' voice on the other side of the door before the room gets filled with gas, and Hiroshi passes out again. In the place we talked to Mika before, we can now pick up one of her gems and leave the building. Everything is on fire, and covered in a mysterious blue substance. Everything here is destroyed. Hiroshi has to find his friends, so he pushes on past all the burning houses. He follows a path made with this blue substance, and notices a house starts shaking, and then he sees the blue demon for the first time in this game. This bluish-purplish light really fits him. You'd think that the village would be orange or red as it's on fire, and even though it's not realistic, I think that the lighting looks way better. Now is a good time to mention the art style. It's ever so slightly different from the other Ao Oni mobile games, using a lot of the same sprites, but it looks like this time they leaned more into the pixelated style and made everything more consistent. Which it's genuinely extremely hard to do because the game literally reuses a lot of textures. Something about it, although small details don't make sense or look strange, just all fits together in a great looking way, and it would be absolutely phenomenal if this game was ported to PC. I doubt it though. Hiroshi walks through a clearing in the forest and comes up on a temple, a reused location from Ao Oni 3, which at this point we can guess that none of the games are canon to each other's storylines, but maybe we can pick up a little bit of consistency between them. This is when that choice from earlier comes into play, because depending on what gem you choose, it decides what side of the temple you enter first. You end up entering both anyway, so this first choice is similar to the choices from the games before in that way. Neither of the options actually do anything. I forgot to mention that I'm going to be going through the choices in the way that I play the game, and then talk about what the other choices do and the different endings you can get after I talk about the one that I got. This first side is a basement with water all over the place, blocking our path in one door and frozen in crystal-like formations in another. One of these can be melted to get a button, allowing access past the room with the water blocking the path and leading to a giant stone head with one glowing eye. There's a poster showing us that we need to go around and count how many symbols there are, and when we do that and enter it in a keypad, the other eye lights up. This lets Hiroshi leave and go to the other side of the temple. There's another stone head, and this one is right at the entrance. Neither of the eyes are lit up, meaning that we have some work to do to get both of them lit. There's a racist poster on a wall telling us to make a white doll do blackface and put it on a pillar to have Ao Oni break the giant head and allow us access to a hidden area behind it. This is when Hiroshi finally hears from Chitose again, hearing her ask to be let go. There's books all around this temple talking about a religion that worships Ao Oni, calling him God. We will learn more about this soon. Hiroshi gets a couple buttons activated and leaves the temple, not being able to find Chitose. He walks to the middle and the doors in the center are finally open, allowing him to go inside and see Chitose tied up in a shrine for Ao Oni. She thanks Hiroshi for saving her and tells him what's going on. She lied to the group and actually lives in this village. They do a ritual where they sacrifice people, and she brought Hiroshi's group to be sacrificed. Little did she know that one person of her role in the religion has to be sacrificed every time as well, so they tied her up and tried to kill her. The rest of Hiroshi's friends are in different areas around the village, so they must be saved. This is where our first impactful choice happens. We get to choose which location to go to first, with the mountain range, swamp, or cemetery being your options. I went to the cemetery first, which was actually the only one you weren't supposed to go to first, but I'll talk more on that later. The cemetery only lets you see a small area around you for the whole outside location, which you might recall was one of my ideas for Ao Oni version 6.23, and it's implemented exactly how I explained, other than the fact that there's barely any Oni encounters here. Hiroshi and Chitose hear Takuro yelling from inside of the building, and run over to the door to talk to him. Takuro isn't able to leave where he is because the door is locked, leaving Hiroshi and Chitose with the duty of going inside and finding him. Unfortunately, Takuro stops replying to them after a moment, and they don't hear from him. And even worse now, two villagers can be heard at the front of the cemetery, locking them inside of it. They find a secret staircase underneath a stone casket, and when they go down it, there's a cat. This is the village's cat, but it's been missing for a while now. Its name is Pon-chan, but before Chitose can catch it, it runs away. This area down here is an underground area for storage and electrical junk. Hiroshi can go downstairs and find a boat tunnel that leads him to a new place, but before he can explore, he sees bubbles in the water. Ao Oni is about to emerge, and he only has a few seconds. He runs to the jail door and closes it, and you already know what happens next. Here, he gets a fuse and starts the power back up in the main area, granting him access to the rest of the area, which for some reason actually has some living space in it with lockers, a dining room, and that room. While exploring, Hiroshi and Chitose come across Pon-chan again, and have two options. Leave the cat alone, or try to catch it by force. Of course we try to catch it, but it runs away before we're able to. If you follow where it went, it's nowhere to be seen, but there's a key on the ground. This key opens a locker with a sturdy box inside of it that we can crush with a giant boulder that falls from the ceiling when we press a button. This allows Hiroshi and Chitose to continue forward, and the screen fades to black. We cut to a few hours ago, and Takuro is in his cell. There's a giant muscular purple arm next to him and a grate in the floor. Takuro is trapped in a cage, and we see him have the conversation with Hiroshi again. The room starts filling with purple gas, and the muscular arm starts moving. Takuro needs to figure out something quickly. He goes over to the door and gets a running start, slamming into it over and over again until he finally gets through. Now we are playing as Takuro, trying to meet up with the others. In this room, there's a robot that needs a security card and a computer. When we get this card, the robot powers on and gives us a clue as to what the password is for the computer. Entering CAB allows us access, and we realize that we need the keycard again for an elevator, but returning to the robot, it's missing. When we find it, Cyclops Ao Oni breaks through the wall. This is the only time this Oni is ever used in a chase, and it has no special mechanics. We'll see it one more time though. Once the puzzle with the keycard is completed, Takuro leaves the building and meets Hiroshi outside. They go to leave the cemetery, but a rock behind them moves out of the way, and gas starts pouring into the whole cemetery before a cutscene plays, showing us the boss battle. The zombie Onis return with a new face, and the rocks must be pushed over the hole spewing gas while a timer ticks down. The zombie Onis are slow, and the area is wide. They give you a lot of time, so this boss battle is extremely easy. You can even get them to walk into each other, and they act as a single Oni. When this boss battle is over, Takuro stands on the other side of the cemetery as they talk with each other, and Ao Oni appears behind him. Takuro tries to run, but sprains his ankle, forcing Hiroshi and Chitose to leave him behind. Now they have to decide which area they want to go to next. Having the mountain range and swamp is options. I was thinking the mountain range would be an awesome final location, so I went to the swamp next, which turns out to have an abandoned laboratory in it. Hiroshi must get the power started to enter, and the giant power box thing needs fuel, so Hiroshi gets it from a car on the other side of a giant lake you must walk precisely on or you die, puts it inside, and presses the green button, otherwise this happens. Okay, man! And then we can finally enter the laboratory. This laboratory is presumably where Ao Oni originates. It's not confirmed, but there's notes inside about them creating a blue medicine that makes the person taking it lose their mind. There's a dark room that acts as a maze with the Cyclops Oni making another brief appearance, flying past Hiroshi as a ghost. At the end of this maze, there's a beaker with red liquid inside. The last room has a few jail cells, one with an empty beaker, another that's empty, and one with a body bag in front. Of course, Ao Oni is in the body bag. When you end the chase, the body bag disappears, allowing you to turn off the power for the building and see a number. There's a number in each room, and when you get all three, you can open the elevator. Down here, there's a door that needs 2 people to stand on a button to open, a large hole in the floor, and a few other rooms. To open the door with 2 buttons, a bust needs to be pushed 4 entire rooms and onto one of the buttons. It gives you a screwdriver head for a screwdriver you pick up in a random cupboard, and then you can unscrew one of the cupboards to get a key to a room with a painting. A note tells us to count the amount of trees and moons in the painting, and you'd think it'd be clever with the lake below and you'd have to count the ones in the reflection, but nope, the code is 18. You get planks that can be used on the large hole, finally leading to an elevator. There's a room to the left, however, and inside there's that same purple substance all over the floor and wall. And for the first time, other than on the piano keys, there's actual blood on the floor as well. There's a machine in the middle where you can put a liquid to make medicine, where you can either put the empty beaker, the red beaker, or nothing. I put the red beaker and it made the machine short out and break. The elevator leads down to a long room with red and blue liquid on either side, and when you cross it to enter the door on the other side, you can see purple tree roots throughout the entire room. And now Hiroshi is finally introduced to Tree Oni. During this Undertale-esque boss battle, Hiroshi has to dodge bullets shot from flowers on the sides and press 4 different buttons in each corner. This is a huge step up from the Zombie Oni, a weirdly unique boss fight with a great theme and a funny but interesting design. Once Hiroshi presses the final button to destroy Tree Oni's roots, he disappears and we're left in the empty room with everything collapsed and no color. There's a doorway where Tree Oni used to reside, and inside of it is Mika. She seems to be normal, but as they try to talk to her, she tweaks out and slams against the wall before running away, meaning that they've lost Mika as well. The final location is the mountains. Takeshi is the last survivor. They walk up to the bottom of the mountain and find a mineshaft with a few houses. There's a razor in the mineshaft that can be used to cut open a drum that is literally not hinted at whatsoever, and get a brick to break open the door to a house. In here, Oni breaks out of a closet and leaves behind a wooden plank that we can pick up and replace the broken lever in the mineshaft with. The minecart rolls and crashes into a rock at the end of the track, knocking down a key for the inside of the house. This magically leads to a long dirt tunnel, but we're no stranger to impossible rooms, so we push on and arrive inside of a cave. Now, I don't know how, but for some reason, Chitose and Hiroshi decide to stand over part of the cave floor that obviously has cracks in it, and Chitose gets trapped after it collapses. Now, this is a long, tedious puzzle to get a rope and help Chitose out, so I'm only going to be going over the highlights, like this new Oni variant, the Skinny Oni, which apparently was in Ao Oni 2 as well, but I missed it. There's a note from the group leader. It reveals that his mother was taken away from him and offered as a sacrifice to Aogami-sama when he was only 10. He says that he's the chosen one, and he's closer to Aogami-sama than anyone else. He believes that his soul's purpose is to be another offering for Aogami-sama. When Chitose is brought up to the same level as Hiroshi in the cave, they go to a door together that requires 2 people to open. The door leads up to the mountaintop, covered in snow. A new mechanic is introduced up here, a straight rip from Undertale with ice that makes it so you can't stop sliding across once you've stepped on it unless you hit a rock. There's another house past this ice with matches on a table and a secret room under a bookshelf with a knife and a note that warns Hiroshi not to go near the northern cave. It says that once the ritual has begun, it's already over, calling all of the villagers crazy and saying that there's no way that that monster is God. On the other side of the mountain, TNT can be found and lit to blow up a wall and get a rock. This rock is used to complete another ice puzzle and let Hiroshi get to the other side, which is where Takeshi is. Now finally, Hiroshi has the chance at saving one of his friends. A timer starts, meaning that Hiroshi has to act quick. He runs up and to the right, pushing rocks out of the way and pulling a lever. There's more ice to pass, but after getting past it, he cuts the rope off of Takeshi to free him. They don't get to celebrate long, however, as the mountain starts shaking. Something is emerging from the forest. A brand new Spider Oni with eyes all over it. It plays like the final boss of Ao Oni 3, its hands going down and trying to catch you as you run. Ice is present again, and rocks. It chases you all the way down the mountain until you finally get to the bottom. Takeshi survives because of us grabbing the knife. This means that it was possible to save Mika and Takuro as well, but I didn't make the right choices. Hiroshi and Chitose arrive back at the village to recoup. Now is when Chitose reveals something to us. She asks us to help her sister, her twin sister. Chitose was taken by the villagers to become Aogami-sama's shrine maiden, which only a few people are able to become. She wants to save her sister before the village sacrifices her to Aogami-sama. Chitose knows it's wrong, as she lured Hiroshi and his friends here to begin with and got them killed, but she asks Hiroshi for his help. Hiroshi has no reason to refuse now, and agrees to help. He promises to save Chitose's sister. They go inside the temple to find a book about the ritual to remind themselves where she could be, and find out that every century they host a ritual for Aogami-sama, where they sacrifice one person to each god on the east, west, and south, and then 99 more. One of the 100 sacrifices must be a shrine maiden, which is why they captured Chitose. Her sister was also the White Shrine Maiden, meaning that they probably captured her as a replacement after Chitose escaped. We find out that there is one more location nearby, and head into the northern cave we were warned about before. Chitose apologizes one more time to Hiroshi before they walk in and discover a broken bridge, a lever that can be broken off by opening it a few times, and a couple other rooms, one of which with a chair that we can use to get a hidden rope. Hiroshi attaches the rope to the broken bridge and falls down it, into the pit, and reaches the bottom. Down here is an incinerator, a power supply, and some skeletons. We can put a book in the hands of the skeleton in the middle, but nothing comes of it yet. A little robot toy we picked up can have the twisty thing on the back of it be removed and put into a music box. It plays a high note, a low note, and then another high note, telling us the code to a lever combination in the pit, turning on the incinerator. We can burn the lever we broke off, and it unlocks a door at the exact opposite side of the area. When Hiroshi goes to check on a locker inside of the cage, Ao Oni comes in behind him, and we see the jail scene for the last time. But an alarm starts and distracts Ao Oni. Hiroshi follows and goes back into the pit. Burnt remains of firewood lie in the incinerator, and using it on the book we put in the skeleton's hands gives us the code to the keypad on the locker, giving us a fuse to use in the pit. And finally, after enough back and forth, Hiroshi continues on a bridge to the next area. He's chased by Fuwari into an area that looks like the boring locations from the other games, which thankfully is the last location like this since this is the last game. A few easy puzzles and Simon Says lets Hiroshi into a room with a bunch of chess pieces. The goal here is to put the silver chess piece into a checkmate, but we'll come back to that in a minute. There's a room downstairs that has a cutscene of Ao Oni breaking a locker. If you go back to where he broke it, there's a hole in the wall with a secret room behind it, giving Hiroshi a shovel. There's a diary on the table from a villager who worked on the altar to offer sacrifices, but he lost his shovel. Now, once this checkmate is made, the door at the top opens to a long staircase with villagers waiting on the sides, looking kind of similar to a Pokemon gym. Except, instead of battling you with Pokemon, they say boring cryptic shit that doesn't mean anything. Man. Once the duo reaches the summit, they see the group leader alongside two other villagers. They recognize Chitose, and she confronts them about his sister. They tell her that his sister is already dead, and Lord Aogami has taken her. They were planning to have another guest, but he escaped. That guest would have been Takeshi if we didn't save him. They've successfully collected 99 sacrifices and Chitose's sister. They walk backwards into the darkness, sacrificing themselves. Now they need to get out, but the room shakes, and the final boss rises from the darkness. Aogami-sama. The fight plays out just like the boss in Ao Oni 3, except this time we are running down through every location that we've been in before. The cave that we were just in. The swamp where we saw Mika and Tree Oni. The cemetery with the zombie Onis and Takuro, and the mountain with the ice. The giant spider Oni, Takeshi. And then we see the mineshaft that was below it. And finally, the village with all of the burning houses. As Hiroshi finally makes some distance, Chitose stands her ground. She thinks that they'll both be killed because it will catch up, and she tells Hiroshi to run away without her. There's no time to convince her. It's over. Chitose stands back while Hiroshi runs, and she thanks him for everything. Chitose is consumed by Aogami-sama, just like her sister. The monster tries to break out of the tunnel, but ends up collapsing it, making a return to the village impossible. After that, I kept running like crazy. Before I knew it, I was home. According to rumors, the area around that village was hit by a mountain collapse. It's closed off for good. My choice in that village, was it really correct? Before the story ends, Hiroshi talks to the only other survivor.
Hiroshi, you are safe? Are you hurt?
I'm good.
What about everyone else?
Everyone except Chitose was a sacrifice. And Chitose was a decoy for us to escape.
That's...
I'm sorry I couldn't help you. I'm so sorry about everyone. We need to escape and make sure their sacrifices won't be in vain.
Mika and Takuro Oni walk out after they leave. They go back to their normal lives now, and the game hints at us that we're able to save everyone. So now we have to do a second and third run of the game to get the other endings. The way we do things is very precise, and to get the other endings we have to take the choice out of the choice game. Hiroshi and Chitose go to the swamp first to save Mika. Remember those beakers we picked up and could put in the medicine machine? We never ended up using those correctly. The right way to do it is to go down the elevator first and scoop up some of the blue liquid on the right side with the empty beaker, and combine the red and blue beakers to make a purple one. This is then used at the end of the boss fight to save Mika from going insane with the Oni drug. Next, Hiroshi and Chitose go to the mountain range to save Takeshi, and it plays out exactly the same as it did in the first run, so I'll skip over it and go to the cemetery. This is normal at first, but when the duo head down the stairs, we can see Mika entering the cemetery. This area plays out the same until Hiroshi does a puzzle to get a crowbar and break a shelf in the kitchen, getting a bag of cat food from it. This cat food can then be used when encountering Pon-chan, taming her and then catching her successfully. The rest of this part plays out the same until the end of the boss battle. When Takuro trips this time, Mika comes out to distract Ao Oni and let Takuro get away. When she escapes the Oni, she comes back and everyone is safe. Now, when going up the stairs to Aogami-sama's room, there are 5 people instead of 3. This is because they needed to sacrifice more people for every survivor that was freed. The boss battle plays out the same and ends with Chitose sacrificing herself for the good of the group. They're all happy that Hiroshi is okay, but when he tells them that Chitose sacrificed herself, everyone is distraught.
Wait a second. Then...
Don't mess with me. Get out of the way, Hiroshi.
The entrance was destroyed. You can't save her. There's no point in going back.
As much as Takuro wants to save Chitose, it's already over. The tunnel is destroyed, and they need to leave to make sure her sacrifice isn't in vain.
Fuck! Everyone, let's run!
They all manage to escape the village thanks to Chitose's sacrifice. Their lives go back to normal eventually, as if they never even met her. But how could Hiroshi save Chitose? He still thinks back on it, even after everything went back to normal. This last ending has to do with that shovel we pick up in the secret room. Earlier, before the chess puzzle, there was a room with a bookshelf that had a missing book. We can get the book needed from the skeleton in the pit, and put it into the bookshelf, gaining access to a secret hole behind it. A diary is found on the table in this hidden room. The diary of Chitose's sister. The place we met was inside of a cage. 1 step north, 2 steps east. No matter how far you run, you won't return alive. 1 step north, 2 steps east. Following these instructions inside of the room, we dig up a charm belonging to Chitose's sister. Now the ending plays out exactly the same, with Chitose sacrificing herself at the end of the chase, but we give the amulet to her. She stands face to face with Aogami-sama, apologizing for not being able to help her sister, and getting everyone involved. But Aogami-sama doesn't kill her. It recognizes the charm and backs off. Chitose is allowed to run away as her sister holds Aogami-sama back from inside. There's no scene of them meeting up at the bus stop this time.
After that, Chitose and I managed to escape from the giant monster. We met everyone else who was waiting at the bus stop. We all left the village together and ran like crazy. I don't remember how I got back. The only thing I remember was that everyone was able to return safely.
Unnamed students speak of the ghost bus stop story we heard about in the beginning, and talk about how it's collapsed now. The whole area is now closed off for good, and the bus stop is going to be abolished alongside of it. They say that nobody lived there.
Nobody lived there. Nobody would have thought there'd be a village there. Sorry about your hometown, Chitose.
No, it's fine. The whole village was strange. I'm sorry for dragging you all there.
You don't need to apologize, Chitose.
That's right, you were also a victim.
Anyone would go crazy if they lived in a village like that.
Thank you, everyone. I'm glad everyone's safe.
They all joke around with Takeshi for a bit, and Takuro, Mika, and Takeshi run off to go buy a new camera since they lost the old one. Chitose and Hiroshi stay behind.
What's wrong, Hiroshi? Don't you want to go?
I'm sorry I couldn't keep my promise.
Promise?
To help your sister.
Oh, it's fine. To be honest, I don't regret being unable to save my sister, because I got to see her one last time. She saved my life, so I'm gonna live it to the fullest for her.
Ao Oni X's main story was an absolutely phenomenal step up from the last games we played, and I know a lot of people won't agree with me, but I personally see it as my favorite game in the entire franchise. It's a massive improvement from the other 2 mobile games at the very least. It gives me so much hope for the next game in the series that actually got confirmed while I've been working on this video. Every aspect of the gameplay for the story has been good. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's been great, but it's actually fun to play. The boss battles have great animated reveals with fun mechanics in the boss fights, some reused but improved greatly. The story is told through notes all around the village, and it's great that we're finally learning about the origins of Ao Oni. For once, Litmus isn't just retracing their own footsteps and repeating the same game over and over again, and they're actually making something with an original story that will hopefully have continuity in the next installment. There's a bit more told in the other scenarios, so I'll go over them briefly. Here are all the characters with extra scenarios. These scenarios I had to beat completely on my own, and it took hours. There's only one channel I could find that uploaded walkthroughs of these scenarios in English that didn't pop up when I searched for them, so I could only find them after I'd already beaten the scenarios. I even got so stuck on one of them that I had to look it up in Japanese, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I would have thought that Chitose had one, like a prequel with the teacher scenario, but there isn't one present. It's possible it could be added in the future, as they do update older games sometimes, but at the time of making this video, there's only Takeshi, Mika, and Takuro. So let's start off at the top and go over Takeshi's. Takeshi woke up before anyone else in the group, completely on his own. He's scared of the dark but has to use the restroom. Takeshi hesitantly walks to the bathroom and gets jump scared by Chitose. This is before Chitose regretted bringing them there, so she's currently a threat to Takeshi and his group, but Takeshi doesn't know that yet. This is why Chitose lies to Takeshi and tells him that the restroom is out of order, making him go downstairs to the other restroom. He returns from the restroom fine, but as he's about to walk upstairs, the innkeeper runs past him quickly and walks up to him. He offers Takeshi some tea, but Takeshi declines as he's about to go to sleep. The innkeeper insists and eventually peer pressures Takeshi into drinking his tea, making him pass out. When Takeshi wakes up, he's trapped in a jail cell. A random villager wearing white clothes walks up to him and they speak through the bars. The villager tells him that he's a sacrifice, and as Takeshi begs to get out, Ao Oni enters and kills the villager. Takeshi can then steal the key from where the villager was using a plank that he picks up on the other side of the room, and he's given a choice: stay inside of the jail cell or leave. We obviously know that he's meant to leave canonically because of Hiroshi's story, but I chose to stay just for fun. This is an entire ending. He stays inside of a locker like a baby, and Ao Oni eventually comes up on him and eats him. Now, I won't go over this scenario entirely, I'm just going to bring up a few of the locations and items you can get from them. The location that Takeshi is chased into by Ao Oni is at the top of the mountain, with an ice puzzle that's literally a guessing game, and a little house he can get a bottle from that is filled with snow. Next, he travels to the Red Cave and crosses a room filled with lava to get 2 pieces of flint. After that, it's a lower section of the mountain with some planks to pick up and a hidden ritual room. This room is why we collected these specific items, and if you didn't get them, you're forced to restart. There's a book that tells you how to perform this ritual. First, put holy water into the white bowl at the front. Holy water is literally just melted snow water in this religion. Then, place firewood in front of the bowl and use pieces of flint to light the fire. Ring the bell 3 times and put the fire out using the water, and then ring the bell 2 more times and the ritual is completed. What does the ritual do? I don't even know. The ending has Takeshi be seen by one of the villagers, and it starts off the first ever chase in these games that's being done by a human. This is the boss battle of this scenario. As Takeshi navigates past rocks and waste, he gets followed by another villager, and then another. They're all faster than him, making the boss actually quite difficult, giving you just enough time to escape. He enters a locker after escaping. There's another choice here where the villagers say that they are going to replace Takeshi with Hiroshi for Takeshi to give himself up and be captured. Doing so is the canon ending, and ends the scenario with Takeshi at the top of the mountain just like we see him in the main story. Not doing so was too much of a pain in the ass for me, and I bet it doesn't even add anything new. The next scenario is Mika's, and this one actually provides an entire new storyline to the game and is very interesting, so I will be going over this one in more detail than Takeshi's. It's the afternoon, and Mika is walking through the village. She's greeted by a little girl who calls her big sister. She's the little girl that gave Mika the 2 gems she had in the beginning of the game. She says that these gems might be able to be used to escape. Mika wakes up after Takeshi and Takuro. She goes downstairs only to see Takuro being transported in a truck while he's asleep. The villagers quickly grab Mika, taking her early as they can't let her escape. She wakes up again later in a wooden box. Somehow, miraculously, she has access to grab a crowbar from this box and breaks herself out. There's another chase just like the final boss in Hiroshi's chapter, where Mika is chased by 2 people, but she loses him as she goes into a purple forest. She wanders through the forest and makes her way to the other side, where she decides to take a nap in a random location near the laboratory. In her sleep, villagers find her and kidnap her, giving her medicine and taking her to the heart of Tree Oni. We're taken into her mind and are able to see her almost glitch in a creepy way like Doki Doki Literature Club. We're able to see her losing her mind as it's happening. This is where she's seen by Hiroshi in the main story and is able to be saved. But after she's told to head back to the village, she doesn't listen and instead goes to try to help Takuro. As she walks in an alleyway, however, she's found by the little girl again. She asks the little girl where Takuro was taken, and she thinks that he was taken to the cemetery. She offers to help Mika get there before Takuro was killed. The little girl is introduced as Koki and brings her to the right. This is when the main mechanic for this chapter is introduced. Villagers have vision cones that you can't step into. The cones teleport instead of moving, so you can stand just out of sight of them and be fine. They're also affected by rocks, and the villagers can't hear. It's so easy to complete these sections, but it's still very fun gameplay because of how different it is for an Ao Oni game. When they cross and get to a safe point, Koki tells us a secret. Her sister and mother were taken away from her and sacrificed to Aogami-sama. Her father was happy as he's been completely brainwashed by the rest of the village. She stole these gems because they are a necessary part in the ritual, and figured an outsider could do better with them. She's confused on why Mika wants to help Takuro so badly, and Mika says that Takuro means everything to her. There's more guards up ahead, so the duo head into the sewers for an easy path to the cemetery. Or, well, as easy as fishing up a bunch of parts to do puzzles and using colored lights to find hidden codes can be. Mika and Kaoki ride the boat through the tunnel and talk to each other. They're about to arrive behind the cemetery. Kaoki asks about the outside of the village, wondering if there's any more people like Mika there. People who are born into this village never get to see the outside of it, so they never get to see how crazy they are or how wrong these sacrifices are. They just kill hundreds of people for this monster, and nobody tells them otherwise. Who knows how long this has been going on? They arrive at another section where they have to pass by a bunch of villagers stealthily until they get to a dead end. There's a path up into the forest that they follow, and unfortunately they come across Kaoki's father. Kaoki decides to distract him while Mika hides away in the trees. He says to her that everyone will be saved soon and that she is going to see her mother again. She doesn't know that this means that they are going to sacrifice her. She offers to help him and he asks her where Mika is. Kaoki misleads him and gets him to run away. Kaoki and Mika come up on the final area of the scenario, and right here is when the choices come in that can bring upon the different endings. Kaoki has one final request for Mika. She wants to leave this village and escape with Mika. And she doesn't want to save Takuro first. She wants to go now. Mika can say yes, but as she rethinks to herself again about Takuro, she's given a second chance. Saying yes again stalls so much time that Takuro Oni breaks through the wall and eats them both. If Mika says no at the start, she calls Kaoki a girl of the village, and in return, Kaoki calls the villagers to capture Mika. But if Mika says yes and then no to her, she will understand. Takuro means so much to Mika that she has to save him, so Kaoki lets her go safely to save him. Mika tells her that there's better people outside of the village for her, and Mika is just not the right person. Then, Mika saves Takuro and the scenario ends. This scenario was the best extra scenario out of every game so far. New and fun mechanics, a great story that you'd never expect. They went so hard on this one that they ate all of the budget for the last scenario because it is genuinely a living hell. I think that it is actually impossible to complete now, but nobody else has confirmed if it is or not. Let's get into this final scenario. Takuro wakes up in a box just like Mika did. Unfortunately, he gets caught by the drivers and they send him back to sleep with gas again. This is when the part where we play as him goes down, but luckily we can skip over all that in the scenario as we've seen it already. It plays out the same until Ao Oni is behind Takuro, because instead of Mika saving him, it's Pon-chan. The cat gets the Oni's attention and then runs away, allowing Takuro to return to the village to find Takeshi. They were both hiding in a closet with each other, but Takuro was tired of it and he wanted to do some exploration. Takeshi begs him not to, afraid of being alone, but he can't convince him. Takuro walks downstairs and the front door is locked. The phone starts ringing, leaving him with only one option. The person on the phone is one of the villagers trying to find out where the stolen gems are. Takuro tells them that he found the gems so as to not seem suspicious, and they tell him to meet with them. When he finally goes outside, he can see Pon-chan waiting for him, trying to lead him somewhere. He follows Pon-chan through a hole in the wall and to a separate temple. Two people outside of it talk about how the sacrifices are escaping and risking the ritual's failure. This temple here is the main location where the ritual takes place, and Takuro is going to sabotage it with the help of Pon-chan. Throughout the rest of the scenario, there's these little talismans that you can pick up off the ground that can be used later. When Takuro gets into the temple, there's a giant mirror and a puzzle with a bunch of smaller ones. You have to find more mirrors to guide the light straight into the big one. This is the first step of the ritual, and once it's completed, villagers come out and are confused as it's not supposed to be completed yet. Takuro then goes to the next step of the ritual, which is leading water through a bunch of tunnels. I spent 3.5 hours trying to complete this puzzle. There's this map that shows you which doors are supposed to be open with a guide saying that if there's a statue with a person with no head, the door is supposed to be closed. And if there's one with a head, it's supposed to be open. The floor of parts of these tunnels is wet, which is supposed to show you which doors are meant to be open as well, as the rooms that have dry floors are obviously meant to stay closed. Now, what if I showed you footage of a door that has a statue of a guy with a head that's meant to be closed? Or what about this room that the game thinks is closed when it's open that has a dry floor? Or What about doors that are on the other side of load zones, and doors that can literally not be closed and open, and don't update until you enter another load zone? This room is literal hell, and Litmus is my torment. This was the last thing I was supposed to finish for this video I've spent 8 months on, and I literally cannot do it. I've seen YouTubers do it, I've followed their exact footsteps, nothing. This is my end of Ao Oni X, but I just said that I've seen YouTubers do it, so now I'm going to use one of these people's footage for who will be credited in the description. After Ponchan goes down and completes the puzzle, they pull the lever to fill the area with holy water, and once again, the villagers come in confused that the ritual is already taking place when it's not supposed to yet. Takuro makes his way to the next area after a stealth section, which is a room completely full of skeletons. Do not let these guys anywhere near Jellybean. You're given a hammer, and breaking the skeletons reveals a symbol. The villagers come in one final time and notice this, and Takuro follows them outside to a ceremony hosted by the leader of the cult. There's 3 giant rocks inside of a cage, and Takuro confronts them. He asks them why they did any of this, but they're too long gone. They grab him and force him inside of the cage. Him and Ponchan are locked inside, and the ceremony begins. The rocks around them break, and squatters come out and surround them. Takuro makes a run for it and escapes the cage, but he only has a minute to save Ponchan. He must destroy all of the steps of the ritual. He jumps into the water and resurfaces to get inside of the building. First, he enters the skeleton room and breaks all of the skeletons. Next, he runs quickly and pulls the lever back so that the holy water is drained. And finally, he pushes the giant mirror off of a ledge and destroys it. Takuro runs to save Ponchan, but it's too late. Squatto kills Ponchan, and Takuro is left with no option but to escape alone. He runs back to Takeshi, who is now with Mika, and they all run outside together and escape. But what if there was another ending? I mean, what are those talismans for? Well, if you use the talismans and go all the way through the scenario again, Takuro can save Ponchan and escape, letting everyone except these villagers survive. This is the final ending of Ao Oni, and that means that's every single game in one video. I didn't talk about Ao Oni Online, or the terrible 3D Steam game, and maybe a few others, but this is all of the mainline entries as of now. I also didn't cover the animated movie because it's abysmally terrible and I wouldn't subject my worst enemy to it. Okay, maybe it isn't that bad, it has its fun moments. Let's rewind for a minute and go back. The original game for Ao Oni has set up a perfect foundation for a franchise to be built upon. While most RPG Maker games are about combat, this game focused on puzzles and horror. It came in with a unique idea that captured the attention of so many huge creators, and still inspires people to make creative projects today. Every location was worth 1,000 words, and the design of the monsters, while able to be hilarious, can be seen as eerie and can genuinely spook you. You can feel so clever for solving these puzzles, and feel like the dumbest idiot in the world when you lose all your progress after forgetting to save. You can be shocked when you see a room full of variants of this monster that you have to get across. You can feel something when Hiroshi watches all of his friends die one by one, over and over and over again, and you can feel accomplished when you finally make your way out of the mansion. And then Litmus expanded on it. The next game brought the whole group back and introduced a new character with an intriguing story that makes you really want to theorize. It tells every single person's story as they went through the school, turning these one-dimensional characters into main characters of their own storylines. Showing you all of the locations that you've been through already are so much more that you couldn't have imagined yet, and recapturing that feeling the first game gave very well. Now they're on a boat that crashes and they explore an abandoned island full of these monsters. We get to see the dead family members of our main character that led him here in the first place. All of the new variants of these monsters that have evolved across an unspecified amount of time. And finally, they're exploring the abandoned village that started all of this in the first place, led by one of the members of the village for them all to be sacrificed, and they learn the origins of this monster before finally escaping a location together instead of all of them dying in front of Hiroshi. I originally thought that this series was going to be terrible. I saw the mistakes first and imagined a series that ran in circles over and over again, and I was proven wrong. The creativity and originality of this series is something that goes unnoticed by too many people. This game is still a masterclass in RPG horror. It's still expanding as a series, and it's very possible that the golden days of Ao Oni can still be ahead of us. You can say that it won't have the same popularity the original game had, and I'll agree with you, but this series is more than just popularity. This game is art.
petrified, I'm petrified. I can't read the dashboard in my mind, and that's the joke of it. Feel that I'm powerless when you're only being kind. The days keep on flying, I wait to see you when you're crying. I'll tell you why you deserve to smile despite these trials. Break into my soul as I've broken into yours. I won't crack unless you test me by the edge of a sword. Mistakes I repent for, have them scan the words I should say. I won't crack unless you forget that I regret causing you pain. Break into my soul as I've broken into yours. You won't fall in spite of fights and wanting to ride. No remorse, just taking to me the creed of futures we can be. You won't fall, ignite the light through lonely nights, and you'll see breaking.
I'd like to give a special thank you to my member Sibylthus, who somehow stuck with me for 8 months with no uploads. I'd also like to give a special thank you to Sound Sakura, who voices Hiroshi in this video and makes amazing music. They made the song for the montage you just watched, and if you'd be interested in checking them out, they're the top person in the credits. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. You can join my Discord for teasers on upcoming videos, and I'm going to be a lot more active there soon. Thank you all for watching. I've been Ultbee. Peace.